Winter fuel scrap. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, announces that fuel payments will only be given to pensioners on benefits.
The Conservative leadership race is on. 6 senior Tories will battle it out to replace Rishi Sunak as the party leader.
Today could see the hottest day of the year so far, with temperatures expected to soar to 32 degrees.
Good morning. It's going to be a hotter day today than yesterday, and the humidity will rise this week. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
Just after 6 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, a very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, the whole country is this morning in shock as it comes to terms with tragedy in Southport. A 17-year-old male has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder after those 2 children died during what has been termed a ferocious knife attack.
Well, 9 other children have been injured. 6 of them are in a critical condition after sustaining stab wounds. 2 adults were also injured as they bravely tried to protect the children from the attacker.
Merseyside police had this to say yesterday evening.
2 adults are also in a critical condition after being injured during the incident. A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire, who is originally from Cardiff, has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and is being taken to a police station where he will be interviewed by detectives. We believe that the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked.
Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Sophie Reaper. And Sophie, this is an attack which has shocked the entire nation. You can't even imagine how the community there is feeling.
Absolutely. Good morning to you both. I think Southport is usually a quiet, calm seaside town in this part of the northwest, and I think the community here will be absolutely rocked by the events of yesterday. Now, you can see behind me here the police cordon is still in place here on Hart Street, and that's because about 100 metres behind me is the building where we understand that attack took place, at the Hart Space Studios, which is described as a dance studio. We understand that it was a Taylor Swift dance and yoga class that was taking place when the attack occurred. It's advertised on social media, that class for children aged 6 to 11. Now, Serena Kennedy of Merseyside Police told us yesterday in a briefing that the class was underway when a 17-year-old entered the premises with a knife and began to attack. She also confirmed that 2 children sadly died in the attack, that 9 others were injured, 6 of whom critically, and that 2 adults were also injured as she said, they were bravely trying to protect those children. Now, in terms of community responses, you can see here behind me there are already flowers that have been laid out by members of the community, and there's one note in particular that I'd like to read you. It's entitled Hope. It says, "The sun in all its wonder brings light to every path, yet in its former glory embraces every heart. Each day we take for granted the joys of what has passed, but today our pain of sadness has left a shadow cast, and through this devastation with tears can barely cope, our love to be ongoing, we cling to future hope." And I think that's a really poignant message that the people of Southport will be holding on to today. Many families will be affected by that attack yesterday, and I think that message of hope is something that lots of people here will really, really need. Now, in terms of that attacker, it's a 17-year-old male who's been arrested, and Serena Kennedy of Merseyside Police confirmed that he will now be interviewed by detectives. He's originally from Cardiff, they said, arrested, living in the Banks area in Lancashire. So, of course, we'll be bringing you all the latest on those lines, and we'll be bringing you more as well later from Alderhay Hospital, one of the hospitals where some of those victims were taken after a horrific attack here in Southport yesterday.
But, Sophie, I mean, just to make clear to our audience, there's only a certain amount that you can say in these circumstances, and that must be frustrating for people. I mean, there's terrible emotion, poignancy, but that will turn to questioning, and and anger. There's people will have so many questions as to what the motivation was, you know, who was behind this, whatever. But there are restrictions, are there not?
Absolutely, Eamonn. Of course, a 17-year-old arrested, that means that because of protections given his age, it means that his identity will have to remain anonymous unless a judge at some point gives us that permission. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There will be sadness, there will be heartbreak over the coming days, but then there will start to be questions. Of course, we know very little at the moment about any kind of potential motive, but I'm sure over the coming days that will be something that families certainly, but also the people in the surrounding area will start to ask.
Yes, there is you in a beautiful sunbathed street today in a lovely seaside town of Southport. This should have been one of the highlight days, as yesterday should have been, of the whole year. 2 days of sunshine, and then all we get is this tragedy, this awfulness.
Well, I think a lot of our viewers will know of Southport, and it's one of those places here in the northwest that it's quiet, it's a seaside town. Lots of people will have family memories either from when they were a child or in their adult life indeed, of coming to Southport, of walking down the promenade or along the beach, having an ice cream perhaps, enjoying what this seaside town has to offer. But this attack will now be a blight on the memory of Southport, this beautiful seaside town, which, as I say, so many people will have beautiful, fond memories of. This kind of thing really just doesn't happen here. One eyewitness yesterday said this is the kind of thing you expect to see in America, not in sunny Southport, and I think that's something that will really resonate with people and residents here in Southport, that indeed this isn't something we see here, certainly on a regular basis, certainly ever. I can't remember anything like this really ever happening in Southport, and I think a big question as well will be, why children, those helpless young lives, aged 6 to 11? Of course, it's never an acceptable thing, but that will really, I think, impact people thinking of that age, year 2 to year 6. It is truly heartbreaking.
It's like something out of a horror film, isn't it? Sophie, thank you for bringing us that update. I keep thinking about those little girls in that dance class, because it will be predominantly little girls, and it was their summer holiday, wasn't it? It was just the start of their summer holiday, and you can only imagine how excited they were to go to a Taylor Swift-themed dance class, and they would have been dropped off that morning, so excited to go in, and this happens. You can't imagine how their parents are feeling.
Terrible. Shocking.
Just terrible.
Politics now, and the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has controversially scrapped winter fuel payments for 10 million pensioners as part of her mission to save £5.5 billion.
Well, charities are warning the move could plunge millions into fuel poverty, but it doesn't stop there.
Speaking in the Commons yesterday, she blamed the £20 billion black hole entirely on the former government.
I am announcing today that I will hold a budget on October the 30th. Alongside a full economic and fiscal forecast from the Office for Budget Responsibility. We have inherited a projected overspend of £22 billion. Some, including the Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Chancellor, have claimed the books were open. How dare they?
Wow, this was vicious in the House yesterday. We've got Fraser Myers, Deputy Editor of Spiked, with us here in the studio. And Jeremy Hunt, he wasn't taking any criticism yesterday, was he?
No, I think he had a point. He insisted that actually, you know, a lot of this stuff was open before the election. In fact, Rachel Reeves herself in June told the Financial Times that I won't be able to just waltz in there and say that, you know, there's no money left. I've looked at the books, it's a horror show, because we now have the Office for Budget Responsibility and most of these things are made public. And everyone, you know, if you just cast your mind back a few weeks ago during the election, you had the Institute for Fiscal Studies, you had the Institute for Government, all saying that roughly there's this £20 billion black hole that will either have to be covered by tax rises or spending cuts. Both of the parties were very dishonest. You could have probably guessed that the Tories would have gone more for spending cuts and Labour would have gone more for tax rises. But, you know, Rachel Reeves kept saying, you know, read my lips, no tax rises on working people.
Well, that's going to be a nonsense. So this budget, when are we going to get this budget?
We're going to get this in October, and already, you know, we've heard some things there like the scrapping of the winter fuel payment. I think that's probably the thing that's going to worry people the most because that's going to affect 9.9 million pensioners. So only a handful of pensioners, those who are receiving pension credit, will continue to get the payment. A lot of age charities have warned that actually, you know, this will affect a lot more people than you'd expect. A lot of low-income pensioners who aren't exactly on the poverty threshold, but, you know, are struggling. And the energy price cap is probably going to go up by 10% this year. So that's going to be really, really difficult for a lot of elderly people. And I think, you know, we seem to have this strange idea in this country. I think people in the political class, anyway, I don't think ordinary people think this, but people in the political class imagine that all elderly people are all well off and they all own their own homes.
If I hear this again,
it's infuriating.
Well-off pensioners. I don't know of any well-off pensioners.
No, I think it's because, you know, people in the political class, they're well off. The old people they know all have homes, all have done well out of life. That's really not the case in this country. We have some of the highest pensioner poverty in Europe. So this is potentially quite catastrophic.
She's going to... Sorry, just to interrupt you. She is going to take money off all of us. Well, most of us. But she's going to make it look as if, if you're quite ordinary and you earn an ordinary salary, we'll try and leave you alone, but we're going to get all those other ones out there, the ones who get capital gains tax, the ones who get inheritance tax, the ones who get selling your house. You'll be done for that if you make any sort of profit on your house.
Well, exactly, and you know, the cost of housing has gone up so much that you no longer have to be a particularly wealthy person to pay inheritance tax just for, you know, passing on your house to your kids. So, I think it's a bit of a myth that it's just going to be wealthy people that are going to be affected. I mean, they use this phrase "working people" to say that's the only people, you know, those people will be protected from tax rises. But actually, a lot of people, you know, might have other assets, might have other ways they're paying taxes. And also, you know, ultimately, wherever you put taxes, it's the consumer that pays for them anyway. So if you tax businesses too highly, then they pass those costs on to the consumer, or we pay for them, you know, through higher prices and things like that. So we all have to foot the bill.
It is also important to reflect as well that Rachel Reeves has decided to increase public sector pay, and that is a large chunk of that £22 million black hole. That's included, and that's about 10 billion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's roughly half of the 20 billion black hole. Now, she will say that she had no choice. I mean, to a certain extent, these pay disputes do have to be settled at some point, but she has chosen to go for, I think, the higher end, essentially. She's agreed to give junior doctors 20% pay rise over 2 years. That's raised a lot of eyebrows. She's accepted the view of the other pay bodies for other public sector workers of around 5.5%. Now, you know, fair enough. I think those people need to have at least a pay rise in line with inflation, if not more. That's reasonable. But for her to say that is, you know, an uncosted thing belonging to the last government, I think is slightly disingenuous. That's her own choice. It's a reasonable choice. It's a perfectly defensible choice, but it is her choice.
And even if she wasn't aware of the full picture, which is what she says, that it's way worse than any institute had predicted, this is still bad management, isn't it, of public finances?
I think so, and I think, you know, it's bad management on all sides. I think that she is right to say the fiscal inheritance was poor from the last government. There's no question about that. The general economic picture is not good. But what's worrying is that some of the things that she's planning to scrap are things like infrastructure projects. And, you know, one of the big problems that we've had over the past, you know, few decades is not enough investment in infrastructure. That drives economic growth. And, you know, Labour's big message is we're going for growth. How does that square then with her scrapping lots of these road projects and rail projects?
We have a Victorian infrastructure. It's absolutely, and people think we're going to progress with this. I mean, we're talking about railway restoration programme axed. It saves 85 million quid. I'm sure people, you know, I don't know what people think about this. 40 new hospitals. There's going to be a big review on that one. Axing of adult social care charging reform. It saves £1 billion. Social care. We haven't got any funding in social care, and they're going to take £1 billion out of it.
Yeah, another issue that's going to be, you know, the issue that's plagued British politics for the last 10 years is going to be shunted into the long grass again. But yeah, you're right to highlight road and rail. I mean, people know that the roads are over congested, the trains don't arrive on time. That is all holding back growth. That's all holding back the country's potential. And if this is a government that is serious about growth, you'd think that they would be increasing the funding.
Well, about time somebody's going to have to get serious about migrants in this country. They say they will scrap. Rachel Reeves says she's scrapping the Rwanda deportation scheme and cracking down on migrant hotels. And that will save £8 billion pounds. So what do we do as a country now? Are we now sitting saying, okay, yeah, just keep getting these migrants in. Yeah, we'll pay from that somewhere. We haven't got any money set aside, but we'll find it from somewhere. 8 billion, yeah, stick you up in a hotel doing this. When is anybody going to stand up and say, anybody in authority, any top people I'm talking about, because ordinary people believe this is out of control. We can't solve the world's problems. We can't sit and say, come to us. We're seeing the reaction in Ireland there is to this at the moment. And this just is unbelievable that we are forced to spend all this money on people that shouldn't be here.
Well, it's an extraordinary amount of money, but I don't see how Labour has a plan to deal with it. You know, it's all very well pointing the finger and saying that the Conservatives spent all this money on hotels. But if their plan is simply to process people more quickly, that implies
staying in the meantime.
Well, exactly. They have to stay somewhere in the meantime. But also, if they're accepted at the current rate, I mean, the rate of acceptance has gone up considerably in the last 10 years. About 70%. It used to be only 10 years ago, it was about 30%. So something has changed there.
Yeah, so basically, if you apply for solace in Britain or whatever it is, there's a 70% chance you'll be granted.
Yeah. Essentially. And so does that mean that people are going to be shifted from hotels to social housing? Is that actually solving the problem?
That's cost in itself.
Exactly. All of these things cost money. And we know that, the Labour Party is not serious about reforming the migration system. It's committed to our place in European Convention of Human Rights, for instance, which a lot of people think is a barrier to, deporting people who shouldn't be here, including criminals who shouldn't be here, let alone, people who just simply have failed their asylum application. It does seem that problem is set to continue, that it's not something that they're going to take seriously. They've highlighted the cost, but what is their solution to the problem? That remains to be seen.
OK, Fraser, we're taking it seriously this morning. We're going to have you back again. We'll talk about this again. We want to know what people think about this. If you have your say on the programme today, how would you save that money? We're looking at what the Chancellor is chopping, but there is a black hole in UK finances. Pensioners are being hit again. No fuel allowance now for most pensioners. If you own property, if you run a business, you're going to be hammered, right? Let us know. Have your say. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom.
The former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards has been charged with making 37 indecent images of children. He's accused of having 6 Category A images, 12 Category B images and 19 Category C images in his possession. Confirmed by the Metropolitan Police, the offences are claimed to be linked to images that have been shared on WhatsApp. They are alleged to have taken place between December 2020 and April 2022. He'll appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow.
The Omagh bomb inquiry, led by Lord Turnbull, will have its first public hearing today. It aims to determine if UK authorities could have prevented the 1998 Republican bomb attack that killed 29 people in Omagh, including a woman pregnant with twins. This long-awaited investigation seeks to uncover any potential failings that may have led to the event.
And junior doctors have been offered a pay increase of more than 22% in a bid to end their strike action. The Chancellor has confirmed that the British Medical Association is now putting the offer to its members. Doctors have walked out 11 times since 2022 and have been demanding a 35% pay rise.
Well, look, we've all been told it's going to be a gorgeous day today. Well, actually, I say a gorgeous day, but there'll be health warnings, won't there?
Oh, yeah.
It'll be horror.
Surprised we haven't had them so far today, actually. The yellow and amber weather warnings.
But it will be a gorgeous day.
It will be gorgeous. We have to soak it up whilst we can because it will be gone tomorrow, probably.
Yeah. Not that we see it. If you work, you don't see any. But yesterday, everybody was saying, gorgeous day, gorgeous day. I'm thinking, haven't seen any of it, you know.
Yeah,
There we go.
we're here or asleep.
Hope you get to see it. Here's Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be another very hot day, likely hotter today than yesterday. Dry and sunny for most of us, and it will stay warm and humid overnight as well. There's still a weak weather front across northwestern areas, bringing some hazier sunshine to parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of Wales through this morning. That will sink southwards slowly through the day into central areas of England, bringing the hazier sunshine here. But elsewhere, long-lived, strong sunshine, and it will feel very warm indeed. As I said, hotter today than yesterday. 32 degrees is possible in the south and east. Could be the hottest day of the year so far. Widely, though, we're in the mid to high 20s across England and Wales. And it is going to be a hotter day for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland too. Across the far north of Scotland, though, the Northern Isles, we've got a bit of a brisker breeze, a risk of the odd shower here. Dry, though, elsewhere across Scotland. Temperatures still in the 20s this evening. To Northern Ireland as well. A bit more cloud around, particularly across southeastern areas. That hazier sunshine into central areas of England and Wales. But across the south coast, temperatures still in the high 20s this evening. If you are heading to the beach, sea temperatures are around 18 degrees across the south coast at the moment. Now, as we head into Wednesday, it should stay dry overnight. We've still got high pressure dominating our weather. There will be a bit of mist and fog developing here and there, and across the north of Scotland it will still stay fairly fresh overnight, temperatures still dipping down into the single figures. A different story further south, temperatures in the mid to high teens, and the humidity starting to increase overnight tonight. And that's because we've got this threat of thunderstorms coming ever closer from the near continent. That may affect the Olympics through Wednesday and into Thursday. More likely we'll see that thunderstorm risk in the UK through Thursday, but there is a risk through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening. Away from that thunderstorm risk, though, temperatures still in the mid-20s and the high 30s are still possible. Have a great day.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, and as if this day couldn't be better, we have got the Great British Giveaway still to come.
Yes, you could enjoy a massive win this summer. Your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash. You really could be our next winner. Here's how.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, Robert Fox will be with us to tell us more about the rising tensions in the Middle East. This is GB News Breakfast on Tuesday with Eamonn and Ellie.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
One local cricket team was made up entirely of one family, the Jollands.
The Newmarket midweek seconds played Thurlow and Old Milgreenian seconds, captained by, here we go, James Jolland. He played alongside family members Henry, Freddie, George, Jack, Archie, Ryan, Brandon and Daniel. even if slightly controversial. One of the umpires was a Jolland to Stephen the umpire.
Yes, well, the Jolland family mostly live in Wickenbrook in Suffolk and have played for 4 years for Dullingham Village team before it merged with Newmarket. That's the entire backstory. We're delighted to be joined now by Captain James Jolland and teammate and brother Nick Jolland. Really good to see you both this morning. This is incredible. How did you get the entire family involved in cricket?
Well, we started the club about 3 years ago, and it was more friends and family. But then it had this opportunity of this week to get everyone involved, because everyone was back and they all play cricket, various levels, and the youngest being 12, George, and we're all available. So we thought 1 week we'd do the whole team.
You booted the friends out for 1 week only?
Yeah, they were very good about it. They come and watched. They supported us.
How did the other team feel about having an umpire with related ties?
Well, the captain of the furlough is one of our friends. We do know him, so he was fine with it, and there was no controversial decisions at all.
I think it's a fantastic strategy.
No, yeah.
You could plant somebody.
That's the way
in a position of authority. It's a great idea.
Oh, look, here's the scorecard we can see on the screen with all of your names on there. Some fantastic English names on there. How does it get between the family members? Is it very, very competitive between you all?
As you get older, you work on that, don't you? And you keep that competitiveness out of it. And it's really to play with your sons. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, it's a lovely
we've
thing
all
to
got
do.
sons in it. That's why we do it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Just looking at the Middle East situation, Israel struck Hezbollah-linked targets across southern Lebanon overnight in response to a rocket attack that killed 12 children. We've got Robert Fox, defence editor, Evening Standard, a man right across all of this. Robert, it's awful again, the loss of life again involving children. Who were these children? Tell us more.
The children belong to the Druze community, which is a mountain community going along the ridge from Lebanon into northern Israel. They have a particular branch of Islam. They're very separate, but interestingly, they work for the military, both in the Lebanon and in Israel. The Golani Regiment, the Druze regiments do form frontier forces. They're very, very tough indeed. And that's why...
They form frontier forces for Israel.
Yeah, and they would be brought down even to Gaza to do security operations. They are part of the whole IDF.
But they're not Jewish.
They're not Jewish. And this really is the point. But relations, on the whole, although this has been a war zone, particularly in the 1973 war, relations, as I have spotted there, and I've been to this village 3 or 4 times, are quite good between the Israeli forces and the Israeli northern Galilee settlers and the Druze community, because they work for each other. The Druze go out, they don't like to admit it, but they work on Israeli farms quite happily, fruit and so on. They produce very good wine, curiously, in that part. Why Hezbollah attacked this village is very strange indeed. It's not a natural target, it's a provocation, and it must have been an overshot because Bayat is the most prominent mountain in that area. Mount Hermon, generally, until climate change, snow-capped, but it is the big communication centre of the IDF. And that's why everybody is holding their breath. Israel has been quite restrained in its counterattack because it doesn't really want a really big war inside Lebanon, and that is on the cards.
Well, what does Israel do now? Because they are weighing a much wider military response, aren't they? But they'll be all too aware that Hezbollah is much better armed than Hamas.
It is a very well-armed militia, and they've had some tough encounters with them. 1982, 2, where the Israelis went up as far as Beirut, and that operation led to, don't want to be too complicated, the foundation, more or less to all intents and purposes, of Hezbollah. Incredibly tough tactics. Another war in 2006 where the Israelis went in, came to a stalemate. They don't want it again. They've got too much on their plate. They've got Gaza, which is still not resolved. They've got the West Bank, they've got the Houthis, and it's just a big problem. And it's a big problem for the Western allies, too.
Is Hamas and Hezbollah on the same side, deliberately or accidentally?
It's a marriage of convenience or inconvenience, because, in fact, the kind of Islam that they embrace, one Sunni largely and the other Shia, which you get with Hezbollah, but they trade technology, arms, training, both been involved to some extent with the Houthis, and they have ramped up this new terrifying approach to guerrilla warfare. But as you rightly said, that they've got very, very good, Hezbollah have got very good missiles, very good missiles that can strike almost any city in Israel. And this is a colossal problem. And that's why you're right in saying the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, the army, is gaming this through. Do we want a really big war across the border of southern Lebanon when we have this problem unresolved in
Robert,
Gaza?
how does this affect us? It's interesting. Do we get involved in this by arming Israel? Bear in mind we're involved in the same way with Ukraine.
Well, no, we are involved because this is the thing that came up in the election campaign. I'm talking about here and how you got the pro-Palestinian candidates through, because it was claimed that Britain must stop, wait for it, supplying parts for the F-35 fighter, which the Brits, the Americans have, whatever, but Britain is the only major partner with the American Lockheed Martin in that. They supply 15%. 14-15% of the parts. That should stop. It is so complicated. And Britain, of course, has legacy in Israel, the foundation of the state, that it was a British mandate. Before that, Britain is looked to. In a way, we're in it, and one feels this very strongly with the Starmer government, in a way we'd rather not be. And yes, it's a prickly pear. And why Britain is also involved, because we are deeply involved and we are a major power in this, is international maritime commercial shipping. And that is now a big effect and has been underestimated continuously. The Houthis are still a huge problem because they're not being stopped, and they too are ramping up their technology. Largely, of course, as you were saying, from Iran. It's going to be very, very difficult because Starmer and the Labour government peculiarly now looks like the most stable of the major governments in NATO, government partners. Isn't that astonishing? France is in trouble, Germany, Italy is utterly preoccupied with other things, namely migration in the Mediterranean, and we've got a fistfight going on in the United States as we come up to the general election.
What is going on in this world?
Well, I hope you ask me back to explain.
Robert, thank you very much indeed for explaining that. We really appreciate it. Robert is the defence editor with the Evening Standard. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Now, do stay with us. Still to come, our reporter Sophie Reaper will be bringing us the latest on that horrific knife attack at a children's dance camp in Southport. It is a story which has absolutely shocked the nation. This is GB News Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction 9 at Bannockburn is closed for emergency repairs. On the A1M in County Durham, the inside lane's closed southbound for emergency repairs between junctions 62 and 61 from Carville to Boban. In South Yorkshire, Exchange Place in Sheffield is closed off the A61 at the Park Square roundabout for an investigation. The Sheffield Supertram service is suspended between Cathedral and Hyde Park, Sheffield Station and Hallam University, also between Middlewood and Fitzhugh Fitzallen Square and Ponds Forge, and also between Malin Bridge and Fitzallen Square and Ponds Forge. In Leicestershire, the A5199 Welford Road at Husbands Bosworth is closed off the High Street because of a fire, and on the M26 in Kent it's taking a quarter of an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning, and thank you very much indeed for your comments. Getting to so many of you just shocked by what happened in Southport yesterday, and not just shocked, sad. A lot of people just very, very sad.
Horrified.
John says yesterday was a build-up day for me and my family, where our son was killed last year. Today he would have been 28 years old. Instead of celebrating his birthday, I was watching the news coming through. 2 children had lost their lives, several children and the adults at the centre had been injured, and no parent should ever have to lose their child. They will be feeling raw and unimaginable pain for a long time to come. I send my prayers and love to all the victims, and I hope for a speedy recovery of all those injured.
Yeah, and goes on to say, rest in peace, angels. And Adrian says, what a sad morning. Going to a Taylor Swift dance party to enjoy themselves. It's unbelievable. God rest their souls.
Sophie Reaper at the scene for us this morning, and just reflecting what is happening and the way things look. Let's talk to her. Sophie.
Well, good morning to you both. The sun is rising over a shaken Southport this morning after yesterday's horrific attack, and the community have been speedy to respond. You can see over my right shoulder here flowers and messages of condolence already laid on Hart Street, just around 100 metres away from where the attack took place yesterday. In the last few moments, we've seen one lady come and lay this first bunch of flowers here with a message to those families affected. Of course, elsewhere, we've heard from the King and Queen, who have led those responses. That message said, my wife and I have been profoundly shocked to hear of the utterly horrific incident in Southport today. We send our most heartfelt condolences, prayers and deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of those who have so tragically lost their lives, and to all those affected by this truly appalling attack. The Prince and Princess of Wales also commenting, Will and Kate, as parents parents, we cannot begin to imagine what the families, friends and loved ones of those killed and injured in Southport today are going through. We send our love, thoughts and prayers to all those involved in this horrid and heinous attack. Thank you also to the emergency responders who, despite being met with the most horrific scenes, demonstrated compassion and professionalism when your community needed you the most. Now, of course, we heard yesterday from the various emergency services here in Merseyside and the wider North West. Serena Kennedy, the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, confirming to us that two children had sadly died in the attack, that 9 others had been stabbed and injured, 6 of whom left in a critical condition, and 2 adults were also injured as they said bravely tried to protect the children who were attending that Taylor Swift dance and yoga class. We also heard from the North West Ambulance Service. They said that they dispatched 13 of its ambulances along with specialised services, an air ambulance and doctors to the scene. The victims were then taken to various hospitals, of course, around the North West, including Alder Hey Children's Hospital, where they are reportedly now receiving treatment. But an incredibly shocked and shaken community here in Southport this morning.
Sophie, we'll be crossing to you throughout the programme this morning. For the moment, thank you very much indeed. Mike Buckley and Claire Muldoon talking about that story and the other stories making the news today. Claire, I don't know where you can begin with this one.
Well, we begin as the beginning of the summer holidays as well. That's basically where we are. And no parent would ever have thought that, you know, the relief of not having to do the school run would end up with this tragic, awful, horrific news. That's what happened yesterday in Southport. Absolutely horrific.
And you can only imagine the excitement of the little girls going to that dance class at the start of their holidays, the Taylor Swift...
The planning, the Taylor Swift, after the Eras tour that she's just been doing worldwide, the anticipation, the hope that these children must have felt, and indeed the parents to have booked something that they've probably worked really hard to plan, to put in place and to work for, all just to eviscerate.
It breaks your heart, doesn't it? Because it's the innocence, it's the dancing, it's the children that were just enjoying themselves at the start of their holiday.
I mean, I think we're all just shocked. I'm just shocked this morning that something like this can happen at all, and that something like this can happen seemingly with no motive. No, I mean, we don't know anything about the perpetrator, do we? But I think it's partly just the unknowing, but also just the unfathomability of just imagining any human being choosing to do such a thing. And it's just so, I mean, thankfully it's so alien to us, but that makes it almost more shocking. You know, it's not part of a war or a conflict, it's this just pure, unexplainable, almost evil.
Yes.
How do we explain this association with knives, this idea that they can use knives with seeming impunity and, you know, do what they want to do?
Well, I mean, I've seen people comparing this to Dunblane overnight, and I'm sure you have as well, you know, which was the shooting, you know, back in the 90s, and after that legislation was put in place to ensure that firearms were largely and almost entirely removed from British society and culture, which is why we don't have, one of the reasons why we don't have violence that you see, you know, for example, in the United States. So I hope that this does generate conversation about what can you do about knives. Of course, it's incredibly difficult because anybody can go to a shop and buy a kitchen knife, which is a lethal weapon. So it's much more difficult and much more complicated. But it is the case. I mean, we've all seen the news articles saying you can buy, you know, effectively incredibly dangerous knives, machetes, axes, you know, on eBay. Well, I don't know, but obviously removing the weapon is one way to make something like this less likely, though obviously with knives much more difficult. But you're right, we need to look at what is going on in our society, and it isn't just, you know, this incident. Of course, there was the incident in Nottingham last year, which I realise was linked to mental health, and in this case, of course, we don't know anything yet. But we do need to look at what's going on in our society, what's going on with mental health, anxiety amongst young people. We do know that the perpetrator was only 17. You know, I'm sure that the authorities are right. We'll be looking into his background, but then we do need to have a wider conversation about how are our young people growing up, and what stresses and strains are they under.
I want to talk, I'll get your opinion very shortly, Mike, but Claire, this winter fuel allowance and the fact that the Chancellor has scrapped this for 10 million pensioners.
That's an awful lot of pensioners.
I think it's a very brave action, low as well. But then maybe Labour don't see votes with old people and they don't really care.
Well, traditionally, older people do vote Conservative, and I think Rachel Reeves is just saying, you know what, we really don't care. We really don't care. We're just going to completely remove this, and it's only going to be in place, the winter fuel allowance, for pensioners who are on benefits. It's very difficult for pensioners to get any form of benefits. It's very difficult for pensioners who have come through extreme poverty in some cases, fuel poverty, personal poverty. They've been through an awful lot in order for them to still exist, a lot of pensioners. And I'm talking not necessarily about those over 60. I'm talking about those in their late 70s, their early 80s, their 90s. They need to be warm. They need to be comfortable. And I know an awful lot of them that will not put the heating on, that will not do certain things because they don't want to pay for it, because they can't pay for it.
Yeah. Mike, what do you read into this?
I mean, I don't think for a minute that Rachel Reeves and the Labour Party don't care about pensioners and pensioner poverty, and thankfully 2 million pensioners will still get the winter fuel payment. It is the case that the vast majority of those 10 million people don't need that money.
I don't believe that.
Rubbish all the time. Honest to goodness, this fallacy, we should really hit this on the head.
Yeah.
I tell you, as soon as your earnings stop, as soon as your guaranteed income from a job stops, you're in trouble.
You didn't let me finish. I am concerned, as I think lots of people are this morning, about the fact that there will, of course, be a cohort of pensioners above the rate where they would get benefits that will not be getting this payment. They probably really need this payment and actually probably rely on it. And I wonder whether Labour will need to adjust to accommodate for those people a little bit further down the line. One of the successes we've seen in this country in the last decade, since Gordon Brown brought in tax credits, is we have seen a huge decline in pensioner poverty. Sadly, we've also seen a massive rise in working age poverty and child poverty, particularly in the last 15 years, obviously. But pensioner poverty has come down. Nobody wants to see that go up, of course. And I'm sure that the government will be keeping an eye on whether this has an impact on a potential rise in pensioner poverty.
Right.
But clearly, Rachel Reeves has been left in a very, very difficult position. I'm surprised that she's chosen to choose this, actually, as a way of saving money, because it does seem quite blunt, if you see what I mean.
More than brave, I would have thought.
But I do understand that she's got to make what she would describe as difficult choices.
Tell you what, I could go into her books and make choices that would be less difficult than that, you have to say.
We need to protect the innocents, you know?
If you're a pensioner, it's highly likely there'll be no fuel allowance for you in the winter. How does that affect you? This conception that you don't need it anyway? Let us know what you think about that. Sorry, Claire.
No, I was just about to say it's always the innocents that get caught. It's always the hard-working people in this country that get caught. It's always the people that are just trying to do their best that get caught. And I'm sorry, Rachel Reeves and this new Labour administration are out to get people. Always.
It's on the edge of poverty.
They're not. They're literally trying to fix everything.
This point on gbnews.com/you'll say. She says, if the weather drops below a certain level, people on pensioners' credit get £15 a day. The pensioners who worked will get nothing. Pensioners only have to be £100 over the limit, which there are a lot of them, and they will get less than a pensioner on pension credit. Why work? You're just better off staying at home.
And also seasonally and geographically, it's colder in other parts of the country than it is in others. So why can't we have something with parity? Why can't we have something in place that actually helps those that need it, instead of a blanket care for all, and the blanket's now been taken away from people's laps? It's horrific.
I mean, what I will say, just in response to that, is that getting pension credit isn't dependent on whether you worked in your working life or whether you didn't. It's based on your income when you are a pensioner. So whether you've got an income beyond the state pension. Some people who've worked their whole lives on low wages will end up on pension credit, and rightly so, because it's based on income.
Well, a lot of women who weren't contracted into SERPs as well back in the 60s and 70s are now finding it incredibly difficult because the government at the time and personal advisors didn't tell them to get out of SERPs.
Or you could be an illegal immigrant. You could come into this country and, whether you intended to or not, it's costing the country £8 billion to put you up in hotels throughout the year. When, Mike, are we all going to wake up to that we can't afford this migrant situation?
Well, I mean, this $8 billion is genuinely on the last government. So what should have happened is that people came to the UK just as they come to lots of, well, every developed country to seek asylum because they've come, most of them fleeing persecution or war or, natural disaster or something of that nature. They should then be interviewed by the government, by government services to say, are you a genuine asylum seeker or not? Let's go through the evidence. If you are, you get refugee status, then you then get a place in society. You then, like anybody else, need to go and get a job, get an income, pay your own rent, all of that. Rishi Sunak's government decided we're not going to do that. We're just going to have these people stacking up, a huge backlog at a cost of $8 million a day. It's no wonder it's got to $8 billion.
Where do they stay? This is accommodation costs we're talking here.
But this was the government choosing to shut down the system that would process these people. It was absolute idiocy. I mean, people talk about the fact that people can't stay in the UK. The government then was saying everybody can stay.
There's no cost to processing. There is a cost to processing, and 70% of the people who are being processed will be allowed to come to this country. And most people are saying, why? We can't pay for our pensioners' winter fuel allowance, but we're taking all these people from around the world.
Well, these people tend to be fair. These people tend to be working-age people. We need working-age people coming to this country, so there's a consequent benefit for society. People who are given refugee status, they're more likely to be in work, they're more likely to start businesses, employ other people, than people who are born in the UK. That's just a fact, whether people like it or whether they don't. So the vast majority of them do turn into contributing, active members of society.
The vast majority of them don't, Mike.
Well, they do, because that's all the statistics. I have worked in this area for a long time, so I actually do know what I'm talking about.
I didn't say you didn't know what you're talking about. All I'm saying
is...
You've
just challenged what I've said, which is an absolute fact.
We're allowed to challenge. That's why we're here.
But you clearly don't really know what you're talking about on this subject.
I speak to people from Border Force regularly, and they say it's horrendous and it's horrific to try and get these asylum seekers processed, not because of the government's failing, the previous government's failing. And let's be honest here, Labour didn't put up any form of solutions at all whilst they were in opposition to get this sorted. If they were that clear and if they were that caring, they would have offered some solutions.
Labour spent the whole time saying you need to process claims. We're the only country in the world that doesn't process claims.
We do process claims.
The last government refused to process claims. They literally passed a law
they refused to put people in camps.
We will not process claims anymore.
Process claims in Australia, do they? Do them?
Of course they do. They process claims in every country in the world. We're literally the only one that didn't, which is why we've just spent £8 billion of our viewers' money. Well, it's shocking waste of money.
Well, it could be a shocking waste of money letting any of them into the country, you could argue as well.
Well, we are obligated to under multiple international agreements, which we are not going to leave because we are a developed and humane society.
And
thank goodness.
A lot of people would say stupid, maybe, as well.
Not at all. We live in a global context.
In Ireland,
we cannot just divorce ourselves from the global context.
They get to the airport and they rip their passport up. Right? And then they have to be processed as a result of that. Why wouldn't you just send them back in the next flight that they come in on? The flight's going back, right, you get on it, off
because we have a responsibility to those people, just as we have responsibilities to people in the UK.
We're absolute mugs.
We're not mugs at all. I mean, there's a system in place to process these people.
We've got responsibility
It is not a generous system. People have to pass very, very stringent checks for a decision to be made. You are a genuine refugee. Then they're given refugee status. So, I mean, we've just had a government that was not in favour of asylum.
You accept that people are fed up. People look at this country and they say we can't pay for our pensioners. There's so many people we can't pay for. We can't pay for our infrastructure, all sorts of things. But we're giving money after money, £8 billion worth, to people who we don't know who they are, we don't know where they came from, and they're now going to claim they're going to have more rights in Britain than we have.
They don't have more rights than you have, or than any of our viewers have either. I do understand, though, why people have that concern and think, well, why is £8 billion going here when we're at the same time saving £1 billion on winter fuel payments or £1 billion on not paying to cap social care costs, which is another thing that Rachel announced yesterday. So I do understand that, but that £8 billion was a choice made by Rishi Sunak because he thought it would suit him politically or would benefit him politically, which it clearly did not. That £8 billion will not be spent in the future because this government will make better decisions.
It won't be spent because they can't find the people once they're actually left seeking asylum.
The clock's against us. I've got to cut across both of you and come back in 40 minutes' time and we'll talk about other stories. We want your views as well. Please do have your say. Get in touch with us and we'll try and reflect that throughout the programme. Just to say, the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, will be on the programme in the next 10 minutes or so. He'll be live here on GB News Breakfast. Let's have a look at the weather. Here's Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be another very hot day, likely hotter today than yesterday. Dry and sunny for most of us, and it will stay warm and humid overnight as well. There's still a weak weather front across northwestern areas, bringing some hazier sunshine to parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of Wales through this morning. That will sink southwards slowly through the day into central areas of England, bringing the hazier sunshine here. But elsewhere, long-lived, strong sunshine, and it will feel very warm indeed. As I said, hotter today than yesterday. 32 degrees is possible in the south and east. Could be the hottest day of the year so far. Widely, though, we're in the mid to high 20s across England and Wales. And it is going to be a hotter day for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland too. Across the far north of Scotland, though, the Northern Isles, we've got a bit of a brisker breeze, a risk of the odd shower here. Dry, though, elsewhere across Scotland. Temperatures still in the 20s this evening. To Northern Ireland as well. A bit more cloud around, particularly across southeastern areas. That hazier sunshine into central areas of England and Wales. But across the south coast, temperatures still in the high 20s this evening. If you are heading to the beach, sea temperatures are around 18 degrees across the south coast at the moment. Now, as we head into Wednesday, it should stay dry overnight. We've still got high pressure dominating our weather. There will be a bit of mist and fog developing here and there. And across the north of Scotland, it will still stay fairly fresh overnight. Temperatures still dipping down into the single figures. A different story further south, temperatures in the mid to high teens, and the humidity starting to increase overnight tonight. And that's because we've got this threat of thunderstorms coming ever closer from the near continent. That may affect the Olympics through Wednesday and into Thursday. More likely we'll see that thunderstorm risk in the UK through Thursday, but there is a risk through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening. Away from that thunderstorm risk, though, temperatures still in the mid-20s and the high 30s are still possible. Have a great day.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction 9 at Bannockburn is closed for emergency repairs, so you'll be forced to continue up onto the northbound M9. On the A1M in County Durham, the inside lane's closed southbound for emergency repairs between junctions 62 and 61 from Carville to Boburn. In South Yorkshire, approaches to the Park Square roundabout in Sheffield have reopened after an investigation. They've had a number of Sheffield Supertram services suspended to and from Cathedral. As a result, though, those should start to run again soon. On the M6 in Staffordshire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 15 and 14 from Stoke-on-Trent to Stafford. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Horror in Southport as the seaside town is devastated by a knife attack which has shocked the nation.
2 children have died, 9 injured, 6 critically at a dance workshop.
A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder.
Winter fuel scrapping. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announces fuel payments will now only be given to pensioners on benefits.
The Conservative leadership race is on. 6 senior Tories will battle it out to replace Rishi Sunak as party leader.
Olympic chaos. The men's triathlon event has been postponed this morning, just hours before it was due to start. That's because pollution levels in the River Seine are too high.
Today could see the hottest day of the year so far, with temperatures expected to soar to 32 degrees.
Good morning. It's going to be a hotter day today than yesterday, and the humidity will rise this week. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
1 minute after 7 o'clock. A very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
To you that the Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, he'll be with us in 5 minutes or so live here on the programme. Everybody's shocked about what happened in Southport yesterday, and we're getting a lot of reaction from you on that. People saying it's just a sad morning, and I think that is the case. It generally affects people's moods. Today would be a nice sunny day and people should be happy, as it was a nice sunny day in Southport yesterday. And a lot of people, go to Southport for a bit of a break, go there for the weekend, go there for Sunday, go there for a holiday. And that's what we... How on earth do you even fathom that? How do you bank on something like that happening? Why do these people, in this case, maybe a child, he's 17, feel that they can get knives, use knives as well?
You can't comprehend it, can you? I mean, as you were saying earlier, at the start of the summer holidays, one of the first and only hot days of the year, these children going to a dance class, a Taylor Swift dance class. You can only imagine how excited they were to go there, and it ends up like this. June has left this comment on gbnews.com/you'll saying, how can anybody kill and attack innocent children? I'm thinking of those injured, those that are killed and their families, and I'm sending our thoughts, condolences and love. God bless the little ones.
We're getting reaction as well. Rachel Reeves, no fuel allowance now for you if you're a pensioner. It's going to apply to most pensioners we're talking about here. And we're also talking about the migrant situation generally in the country and how much it's costing the country and how much longer can we afford to keep paying it. As regards the winter fuel, Lala says people who have worked all their lives could sit in the cold this winter, and those who don't work and they're on benefits will get an allowance. That might just be the start. The next thing, they'll be taxing the state pension.
Well, there's a lot of fear about that. Maggie on that point says pensioners are just an easy target. See them off and you might be able to save on the pension too. Sharon says she couldn't sleep last night thinking about the poor children in Southport and their families. And she also says, I'm so angry with all of the governments past and present. As far as the winter fuel payment, we are slightly over the threshold as pensioners, but I'm going to really struggle this year. I'm very worried.
I'm sure that's absolutely the case. The costs just keep rising and rising. We've got to stop spending as a government. We've got to raise money and find out ways that we can generate wealth in this country. How are we going to do all of that? And meanwhile, then we get problems, as was in Southport yesterday. Let's go to Sophie Reaper, who's there for us live this morning and will tell us more, because that must be one very, very sad place, Sophie.
It is indeed, Eamonn. Good morning to you both. An absolute hive of police activity here in Southport this morning. You can see here the police cordon behind me, and that's because around 100 metres away, that's the building where we understand that horrific attack took place yesterday. There are also officers coming and going. There's a mobile policing unit also that parked up in the last few minutes. A huge police response to this, of course, as well as from the other emergency services here in the Merseyside region of the North West. Of course, Serena Kennedy, Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, confirming in that press statement yesterday that in that attack 2 children were killed and 6 others were critically injured. 2 adults, of course, also injured as they've tried to protect the children. Now, the community have already responded, bringing flowers and messages of condolence. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister has also offered his heartfelt condolences to the families. Here's what he had to say.
And I know I speak for everybody in the whole country in saying our thoughts and condolences with the victims, their families, their friends and the wider community. And it's almost impossible to imagine the grief that they're going through and the trauma that they're going through.
The Prime Minister there speaking about events in Southport yesterday. We're now joined by the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, and it's very hard, Shadow Chancellor, to ask you to put into words the grief and the sadness of the whole country and the shock that everybody, I'm sure, including yourself, must have felt on hearing that news yesterday.
It's absolutely gut-wrenching, Eamonn, and you know, any parent in the country, our hearts go out, and I guess we just ask ourselves, why? Why could this possibly happen? It is just incomprehensible, and frankly, there aren't really any words you can say that express the terrible, terrible sadness that we all feel.
While you had to go about business as normal yesterday, and you had to listen to the woman who now has the job that you used to have. And I have to say, Mr. Hunt, I've known you for a long while, and you're always a very calm, reasonable man to talk to. You looked angry in the House yesterday. You looked, if I could just say, hacked off. Why?
Well, I was angry, Eamonn. I'll be quite upfront about that. And I was angry because the Chancellor, it's perfectly all right to disagree with good Conservative plans to deal with the challenges on public finances. But what you can't do is junk the plans that we had in place and then blame the black hole that you have on the previous Conservative government. And, you know, we had plans based on public sector productivity. She's just given an inflation-busting £9 billion pay award to nearly the entire public sector, the unions that backed Labour in the election. We had plans to tackle the cost of illegal migrants with the Rwanda plan. She's cancelled that plan. Of course, that crystallises the costs at their most expensive moment because, you know, we paid Rwanda, we got all the flights ready, but we hadn't got any of the savings from people actually being sent to Rwanda. She does that, and then she blames that on us. And then, you know, the single most pressing thing, I think, for most GB News listeners is the soaring welfare bill. And the fact that we are paying far too many people not to work, and welfare reform was junked from the King's speech. So, you know, this is a political choice that the new Labour government has made. They knew they were going to do it all along, and they should have been upfront about that, not trying to pass the blame on to their predecessors.
Okay. Well, that showed.
Well, you have to take responsibility for some of this bill, do you not? I mean, £8 billion being spent on asylum and immigration because of the cost of accommodating people. £8 million a day, you can see how that adds up. I mean, that is the responsibility of the Tories, is it not? It's astonishing that hardly any of it was budgeted for.
Well, we were told by the Home Office that there was a risk of the asylum bill, this number's in the public domain, costing by the end of 2026 £11 billion a year. And that's why we put in place the Rwanda scheme. And that would have worked, not just because those costs you're talking about, Ellie, are basically the costs of housing people. And it would have reduced those costs, first of all, by sending them to Rwanda, but more importantly, by deterring people from wanting to come here in the first place. Now we have the absurdity of people smugglers giving an interview to the Daily Telegraph 2 days before the election, saying they are waiting for Labour to be elected so that they can transport more people over the channel in small boats. So they have made a decision that will literally massively increase the asylum bill. We had a plan to bring it down. Now, that's fine. You know, they were elected. If they want to make that choice, that is up to them to do so. What they can't do is then blame a Conservative government for the increasing costs involved.
Shadow Chancellor, are you saying, or do you suspect, that the present Chancellor already has her plan in place? She always knew she was going to raise revenue in other ways, exactly how to do it. If you believe that, how do you think she plans to do it?
Well, she knew she was going to cancel the Rwanda scheme. She knew she wasn't going to ask for productivity improvements in return for inflation-busting pay rises for the public sector, which we would have done. She knew she was going to junk welfare reform, but she didn't make any provision for the cost to the public purse of doing so. So what she's trying to do is to invent this fictitious black hole so that when she raises taxes, as she will have to do in the autumn, she can blame the Conservative government. And I don't think people will buy that for 1 second, because nearly every independent economist was talking about the pressures on public finances. We had a good plan to deal with those. She didn't, and that's why she's going to put up taxes.
Put up taxes, she's going to put up taxes that basically a lot of people aren't going to object to, because it will be capital gains tax, it will be taxes that maybe that you would get from your property. If your house went up in value, you'd be selling that. There'll be a way of doing this that will protect a lot of people, though, will there not be?
Well, I fear not. First of all, capital gains tax is absolutely vital to the value of people's pensions. And so, it may not affect your pay slip at the end of the month, but it is going to affect the value of your pension, and people will be very angry about that. It'll be devastating for the City of London. Taxes from financial services pay for about half the cost of the NHS. But most importantly, this is a Chancellor who said from day one her priority is growth. And if you do backdoor taxes on business, on investments, you hit growth, because what it means is people invest less in the economy grows more. And that is the fundamental contradiction. That was why the real dividing line in the election was us wanting to bring the tax burden down, because we look around the world and we see that countries with lower taxes have higher growth rates. Labour doesn't have that view, and I'm afraid we're about to see the consequences.
Mr Hunt, we're almost out of time with you. Just wanted to ask you about the Tory party leadership contest. Those nominations closed yesterday. Who's got your backing?
I'm not going to be supporting anyone publicly. I'm a veteran of these contests, Ellie. I've done far too many. I've been part of most of them, so I'm going to be sitting back and sitting this one out.
What's your message then to the next leader of the Tory party? Who is going to unite these warring factions? It's a really difficult job.
It is a difficult job. Of course, it's difficult in opposition, but I think we've got some good candidates, and it's about unity. It's about a sense of purpose. It's about being humble about why we were so resoundingly rejected by the electorate 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Look, so much we could be talking to you about. Appreciate you're up against the clock today. Thank you for your time this morning, Shadow Chancellor, and thank you very much for speaking to us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eamon. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you. Thank you. Joining us now, listening to that, Fraser Myers of Spiked, Deputy Editor of Spiked. What do you think?
Well, I think Jeremy Hunt has a point in the sense that Rachel Reeves knew a lot of these spending decisions were coming and perhaps wasn't, open about them during the election, which was only a few weeks ago, let's not forget. But I'm not convinced that the Tories were open either. Jeremy Hunt talking about he had this plan. The plan implies that there was actually lots of things that were unfunded. So, in many ways, they can be as bad as each other on these things.
Yeah. And whether or not they knew about it, the facts remained that the fiscal inheritance was bad.
Yeah, exactly. And the Conservatives have a responsibility for that. And if you look at the last budget that Jeremy Hunt presided over in March, there was really nothing in there to really kickstart growth or anything like that. Very few, there was the 2p national insurance, and this was their last chance. They knew they were going to lose the election. This was their last chance to turn things around, to get the public back on side, and they threw it away. So, I think, yeah, Jeremy Hunt is clutching at straws here, unfortunately. But it's also the case, he is right to say that Rachel Reeves, I think, is being a little bit dishonest with the public. I mean, there are many other things. I mean, where Labour has done this, and they say that, we're shocked to see the state of... Remember when prisons, they said we're shocked to see the state of prisons. Well, we know that Sue Gray actually drew up a list of things. I can't even say the name of what the list was called because it's rude, but of, things that the government is going to have to spend money on. One of them was prisons, one of them was public sector pay deals, the other was the universities crisis. So, they've been boasting quite rightly about how prepared they've been for government. So they can't say on the one hand, we're ready, we're here, we're hitting the ground running, but on the other hand, everything that's happening now within just 3 weeks of an election is taking us by surprise. That makes no sense at all.
I couldn't have imagined the last government settling at 22% with the junior doctors. They may well deserve it, they may well not. It depends what people think, but I just wouldn't imagine them being able to come up with that sort of money. Yeah, and I think, Rachel Reeves has to now take some responsibility for the political choices she makes. I completely understand the point about the bad fiscal inheritance. We all know that. But it's up to her what happens now, and if she can justify that, and I agree, I think it could be defensible. There are many reasons why junior doctors need more pay. I mean, lots of them are going abroad, overseas. People that far too many of them, people who we have paid to train up. I think Rachel Reeves made a good point about actually the strikes costing a lot of money in the long run.
And adding to the waiting list.
Exactly, adding to the waiting list. Not just the financial cost, but the cost of people's health. So there are good reasons to resolve the strikes, and perhaps this is the way to do it. But she should defend those things on their own terms rather than talking about this sort of phony black hole. I mean, again, they've made other choices. Earlier this week, or last week, sorry, Ed Miliband said the government is committed to 11 billion worth of climate aid for overseas countries. Again, that's a political choice. Defend it by all means, but don't pretend that the money is suddenly dried up.
How long is this going to last for, do you think, Fraser, this blame game? Because they've been in opposition for so long, it's almost as if they're still in that state where they're blaming the previous government rather than their own actions and their own decisions.
I think they've got quite used to it after 14 years. Yeah. Judging by what Rachel Reeves was saying yesterday, she's talking about the budget being in October. Certainly, they're going to try to stretch it out until the autumn, possibly for the rest of the year. Who knows? I mean, a lot of the messaging from Labour has been this is going to be a slow process of turning things around. I think the public won't tolerate that for more than a few months. We're going to forget who the Conservative Party are after not very long.
Why is Jeremy Hunt not going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party? I mean, he's an elder statesman there. He's well respected. He spoke very well in Parliament yesterday. He's yesterday's man, though. I think so. He's run twice. He was rejected twice, and he actually struggled to retain even his seat. He spent more than £100,000 of his own money trying to keep hold of his seat. Yeah. So and he did. He was successful. Thankfully, luckily for him, paid off. But he's in a very precarious position, and I think perhaps he will. I'm surprised like Rishi Sunak that he's actually stayed on in Parliament.
in many ways.
Well, I thought he enjoyed yesterday. I thought that he's actually thinking, right, I've been through everything that you said there. No one cares about me. They're not going to make me leader anyway, but I'm going to fight my corner and defend the position that I was in and the money that I had to play with.
I think so, and I think, yeah, he enjoyed the fact that, you know, other people now have the responsibility, and he knows how tough it is actually to be Chancellor. Probably the toughest job in politics, you know, holding the purse strings. There's so much pressure on you to spend or to, you know, cut taxes or to... every single person has demands for money, you know, coming at you from every ministry. So I think, yeah, he enjoyed playing that role of... I know what it's like being a statesman.
OK. Thank you very much, Fraser. Good to hear from you this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Now, at 19 minutes past 7, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And the former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards has been charged with making 37 indecent images of children. He's accused of having 6 Category A images, 12 Category B images and 13 Category C images in his possession. Confirmed by the Metropolitan Police, the offences are claimed to be linked to images shared on WhatsApp. They are alleged to have taken place between December 2020 and April 2022. He will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow.
The first public hearing in a long call for public inquiry into the Omagh bombing will begin later today. It's led by the chairman, Lord Turnbull, and is examining whether the atrocity could have been prevented. Some 29 people, including a woman pregnant with twins, were killed in the Republican bomb attack, which devastated the County Tyrone town in 1998.
Greenwich Police have launched an urgent appeal for a little girl named Udine, who is just 6 years old, after she went missing in South East London last night. Anyone with information leading to her whereabouts is urged to call 999 as soon as possible.
Right, OK, let's calm things down for a moment and bring you some good news instead of the normal deluge of depression that there is. It's a Great British Giveaway. It is great. Have a go.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner, with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on.
Just go for it. It's an absolute must.
Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, we're talking about how good today's going to be weather-wise, and it'll be very good for vitamin D.
It will be, yes. Hottest day of the year so far.
So they're saying. Find out right after this break.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation. You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
Is he indecisive?
Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
The weather situation today, it's lovely, it's gorgeous, it's fantastic. And then I talk like that and people say, no, but it's the end of the world. That's what's happening.
And you've got to be careful, yellow heat warnings and things.
Protect your skin and protect your head and protect whatever.
Drink
anyway,
water.
Let's go to Jim Dale. Jim loves winding us all up about the weather. Can you actually enjoy today, Jim, or are you in a fever because it's so warm?
Well, Eamonn, good morning. Good morning, Ellie. Look where I am. This is my office for the day. Give or take, so lovely green. Look, I'm going to enjoy this day like everybody else. This is the fourth day, by the way, because it will pass 30 degrees C today somewhere in probably the London area, maybe the surrounds. So the fourth time this year that we've seen, or this summer that we've seen 30 degree past. And if we reach 32 rather than 31.9, which is the present record at St James's Park, just down the road from you, then it will be the hottest day of the year so far. So I think most people are going to welcome this. Yeah, it has been in short change. Let's be absolutely truthful about it. A lot of rain in the beginning. I think in the end, this is panning out. It's probably going to pan out to be a fairly average summer for ourselves. Not obviously so for much of Europe and America in the heat in those places, the big heat. But here, no, I think this is our opportunity. We're always on the fringes of things in the UK to a large degree, temperate zone and all the rest of it. So this is the northern edge. We're on the northern edge of the Spanish plume that's coming up from that direction. And that is why we're going to see what we're going to see today and through tomorrow when humidity levels will start rising. And as well as that into Thursday as well.
I'll tell you what else starts rising, Jim, and this is where I think of you. Not only you're a meteorologist, of course, you're a great protector of the planet and you worry about certain things. But as the temperature rises, so does our CO2 emissions because air conditioning goes on, fans go on. People don't sort of cool themselves in old-fashioned ways. And I always think to myself, right, it's warm, but we're blowing out all this CO2 and it's going to get warmer as a result.
Yeah, there is an element of that. There always will be when we get to these excessive temperatures. Look to the United States, air conditioning kings of the world, essentially. The Asian area, very, very much the same. In the UK, we tend not to have air conditioning, not in our schools, not in offices, not in places that you might ordinarily expect to see air conditioning. So I think it's a bit of a catch-22, but luckily for ourselves, Eamonn, we don't normally see these sort of temperatures last that long, and in this case we won't. 3 fine days and a thunderstorm. So I've mentioned the word thunderstorm. Yeah, we're on the brink of them, not quite there yet, and they probably will not be quite there tomorrow either. But you've got to look out on Thursday, Wednesday night into Thursday. This is the place to be, by the way, in the woods, by the seaside, on a mountain, and all those places, particularly this one and on a mountain ridge, not the places to be on Thursday when there are going to be sporadic downpours, thunderstorms. Don't put yourself in the wrong place on that day. Take the warnings that are out there. There is a yellow warning covering England and eastern Wales at this moment in time for Thursday. So, don't fall into that false sense of security, thinking that just because it's still warm and humid, you can do what you want, because fatalities occur from time to time.
OK, Jim, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Good talking to you, and you enjoy your day. Thank you.
Enjoy the sunshine. Thank you. It's not going to last very long then, is it? Wednesday night. Tomorrow night it'll all be over. That'll be summer done.
Yeah.
Now do stay with us. We're going to go to our horrific top story today, the horror in Southport. Sophie Reaper will be bringing us the latest on that awful knife attack there on children. This is GB News Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction 9 at Bannockburn is closed for emergency repairs, so you'll be forced to continue past the junction and onto the northbound M9. On the M8 in Glasgow, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down at junction 15 at Townhead, causing queues. There are some cancelled Merseyrail train services into and out of Liverpool Central through Kirkdale because of a faulty train. In the West Midlands, the A4124 is closed eastbound along Wolverhampton Road at Heathtown in Wolverhampton after an accident. In Surrey, there's a report of an accident on the A240 between Worcester Park Road and Tolworth Railway Station, causing delays towards the A3. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This morning we're continuing to report, obviously, from Southport in the wake of what happened yesterday. Sophie Reaper is there this morning, and it's just so ironic, Sophie, on what should be such a beautiful day, and the sun shining there on you on that street that we're looking at where the attack took place, that there's such sadness.
There really is, Eamonn, such sadness here in Southport. It is truly a horrific atmosphere here this morning. As you say, the sun is shining, but the mood is truly very, very low. All morning we've been seeing people coming here to lay flowers and messages of condolence as people take in exactly what happened yesterday. Of course, the police confirming to us, Serena Kennedy, Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, telling us in a statement yesterday that 2 children had died as a result of the incident here on Hart Street in Southport yesterday. 9 others were injured and 6 left in a critical condition. 2 adults also injured as they tried to protect the children from the man who entered the premises with a knife and began attacking those inside who were participating in a Taylor Swift dance and yoga class. Now, members of the community, as I say, have been fast to respond, but elsewhere we've also had messages from the likes of the King and Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, but closer to home we've heard messages from members of people who've born and raised here in Southport. For example, Tommy Fleetwood, professional golfer who's due to compete at the Paris Olympics in the next couple of days or so. He took to social media to say, "I'm absolutely heartbroken at the news coming out of Southport today. My thoughts are with the families of the children who were tragically killed and injured. What they are going through is unimaginable. As a parent myself, it's difficult to even comprehend what has happened and what they have ahead of them, but I know the whole community in Southport will come together to support them. My heart will always be in Southport, and together with my family, we are sending all of our love to the people of my hometown." And I think that's something that will resonate with the people of the Southport, but also of the entire United Kingdom as people wake up this morning to that news that 2 children had died, as well as several others critically injured. But that's that line, that what they have ahead of them. Of course, we are still waiting to hear about those children who remain in hospital in the critical conditions. We're also waiting, of course, to hear more from the police about that suspect who was arrested yesterday in connection with the attack on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. A 17-year-old male, originally from Cardiff, they said yesterday, was arrested and remains in police custody due to be interviewed by detectives following this attack yesterday here in Southport.
Just terrific. Sophie Reaper, thank you for keeping us across developments. Untold pain and heartache for those families and for that community as well.
So sad. We'll be talking about that story and lots more besides with Claire Muldoon and Mike Buckley with the papers next.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation. You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You'll relate to this one. We've all been there, haven't we? Tensions high in the car as you head off on the latest adventure or holiday during the summer break.
Now, with the average family set to spend about 3.5 hours a week together in the car driving on the roads during the holidays, new research has shown that our relationships could be tested to the limit.
Yes, figures show that 21% are having arguments for simple things like the driver going the wrong way, which we were saying is not actually very simple. That's very serious.
I was going to say that. I'm surprised it's just 21%. Yeah. So if I was going the wrong way down the road,
you'd know about
it. You'd hear from me.
A further 20% squabbling over how their partner drives, yes, and 25% admitting to being more prone to rowing when their kids are misbehaving. It's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Fair enough.
Well, we're joined now by dating and relationship coach and author Persia Lawson. Good to see you this morning, Persia. What is it about being in a car that just makes things so tense?
Well, I think it's probably quite obvious, isn't it? It's the fact that we are in a confined space, we can't go anywhere, and it can just really create so much tension and stress, especially if you and your other half or a family member, whoever you're in the car with, are going through a little bit of a tricky time. And if it's really hot outside, that doesn't help either. So inevitably, it creates a lot of irritation and bickering, I would say, from my experience.
And what is it about children? If you add children into the mix, it just makes things very, very difficult, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of, are we there yet?
Yeah.
Picking the back seat and just squabbles, kicking the siblings. So adding children into the mix is just going to turn the heat up on that tension.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, join us to go through the other stories making the news today. Claire Muldoon and Mike Buckley. Very nice to see both of them.
Thank you. You
Claire,
too.
There's something I just want to start with. In the Daily Telegraph today, and there is. Ancient salt is back in season after 1,500 years ago. Now, the reason I'm talking to you about it, is it Scottish or is it, right? Okay, tell us more.
So a couple in Ayr, he's an ex-architect. They've come up with this wonderful way of making salt, and this salt is very much a commodity that Michelin-starred chefs want to have.
So the way they used to want the Himalayan salt, that sort of thing,
for curing beef and steaks and everything.
So now you get this salt from Scotland.
Yeah, from Ayrshire.
Right.
And what they've done is they've built a whole forest almost of Douglas firs, planted them on an incline, and then, as you know, Scotland's famous for rain, and it's also famous for this beautiful soft water. The only thing the SNP haven't managed to get rid of, and dire and death and everything else. So this is a really good news story, but also it's lovely to see old methods being resurrected to make good. We've got so many things in this country that we used to be able to do. How often now, if a seam goes wrong in your dress or something, or you need something tailored, it's incredibly difficult to try and find someone who can mend things.
Yes.
We don't do it anymore. We don't make things in true traditional way. And there's a reason why traditional ways, in my view, are often the best, because they're tried and tested. Stonemasonry, for instance, it's these talents that people are completely overlooked with.
But it's supposed to be labour-intensive.
Yes, but what's wrong with that? It's skill. You look at the great artists of all time and the beautiful statues of Michelangelo, for instance. It looks like some of the sculpture is absolutely out of this world. And I think this is a really great, feel-good story.
So
and I wish them all the luck in the world.
And it's blackthorn salt in Ayr.
Yes.
That's good that Ayr's getting that.
It is, isn't it? And they get an awful lot of the coast in from the seawater as well.
Do they still have is it Butlins at Ayr? Was it Butlins they used to have?
I think it was, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's...
Are there any Butlins anywhere?
Are there?
You need to ask Stephen Mulhern. He'll know.
He'll know. Yeah,
I've not heard they've closed down. Let's assume they're still going and having a great time.
Yeah.
A nice new red coat.
OK. Now, what about the pay settlement, Mike? Labour offering junior doctors this 22% rise. What do you make of it?
I mean, this is going to sound like it's a lot of money, I suspect, to most people viewing the show.
Well, it's
but bear in mind, these are people who have really probably had no pay increases or very, very little pay increase over the last 14 years under the Conservatives, as they've, underfunded the NHS with all the consequences.
They weren't underfunded. The NHS hasn't been underfunded. The NHS has been funded in real terms, more than any other times. It's not underfunded, Mike.
I mean, that just is simply not true. I mean, when the Conservatives were in power in the 80s, NHS, the increase was about 2% a year. When Labour were in power in the late 90s and the 2000s, it went up to 6% a year, which is why waiting lists were a record low when Labour left power in 2010. Conservatives came in 2010, that increase went down to zero. They did not invest in an increase in the NHS, despite having an ageing population, despite having lots of sick people in our society. It's completely true. I mean, just Google it. Between 2010 and 2019. To be fair to Boris Johnson, who was a terrible politician in most ways, when he came in, he did start putting some money back into the NHS, but only back up to about that 2% figure. Obviously, massive deficit there between 2010 and 2019, which needs to be acted upon. Now, we know the NHS is in crisis. We know that waiting lists are at record levels. We know that the last government let these strikes go on for 2 years and didn't actually enter into negotiations with the British Medical Association, the Doctors' Union. Labour's come in. They're quickly acting to fix it. That is a good thing. We have a problem with NHS doctors being underpaid. Some of them are paid very, very low amount, despite working 80-hour weeks. We also have a problem with doctors in this country being trained and then going overseas to work so they can make loads more money. We have to prevent that happening. I'm very glad the government's acted. We're all going to benefit.
Is it fair, though, for Rachel Reeves to lump this in with this £22 billion black hole when actually $10 billion worth of it is her political choice? She's decided to give 6 million public sector workers this pay rise.
I suppose she would. I mean, this is not 6 million. This is the junior doctors getting 22%. Everybody else is getting between 5 and 6%.
Yeah, but overall, the public sector workers that she has decided to give these pay rises to also will include nurses, teachers and police officers.
Yes, it will. But, of course, these are people who've seen...
10 billion.
A lot of these people have seen a 25% reduction in the value of their pay since 2010. I think that's about the average over the public sector. So, of course, that has to be redressed. A 5 to 6% increase, particularly given the huge inflation we've had in the last few years since the Liz Truss budget, that needs to be redressed because these people have just got bills to pay like anybody else, you know. Or also they need to do something to match pay increases in the private sector.
Well, they could start by not working from. They could start from getting out of their houses, not working from home, and the NHS could start by trashing all the DEI guys, get them out of it.
Very critical of public sector workers, which I find shocking, given the keep our society going.
I've worked as one, and I know the absolute waste of money that's been held to account or lack of account in the NHS.
Sector workers in our society just needless and quite appalling, really, given the last 14 years and the underfunding and this is the.
It's not under. The NHS is not underfunded.
They've worked at. Of course,
the NHS is on its knees because there's a menu. There's an absolute menu of Google symptoms that people have been presenting with, trying to get sorted. No, they say I don't like the way I feel. I don't want to be a woman anymore. I don't want to be a man anymore. Children were absolutely abdicated. They were put down the route of puberty blockers, which thankfully now Wes Streeting, even himself, who I think is a really good call from Keir Starmer as Health Secretary. I think if we had to have more Wes Streetings in the government, then I think I wouldn't be as angry as I am.
I think what Claire's referring to, Mike, is that there's only so much the NHS can do, and it just increases all the time. For instance, we read a story yesterday about IVF and how IVF is underfunded, and yet the outrage from viewers and listeners was, why should I be paying for someone else to have a baby? Now, that may sound very harsh or whatever, but people obviously seem to put limits on what the NHS should be involved in or not. And where does it end? I suppose that's what people are saying.
I mean, of course there are limits to what the NHS can do, but if you think back to 2010, record low waiting lists, record high public satisfaction in the NHS, we've done it in our very, very recent past. And where Streeting's argument is, when people say to him, well, you can't bring waiting lists down, he says, well, we did it when we were last in government, we can do it again.
Well, there's more people, there is more people using the system now.
Yeah, and using it differently.
And using it differently.
The Google doctor and whatever. You know, times change, who knows?
I mean, fundamentally, we have an ageing population that is going to put increased pressure on, but that's why the NHS needs increased support, which is now going to get.
We have more ghosts in people's homes than we ever had before. So people from the other side, Yvette Fielding, who presents these ghost programmes, she talks about how most houses, most homes have a ghost within them, and here's the important thing, they're trying to speak to us and we should try to speak back to them.
Well, the only spirits in my house, you can understand what that would be, is a good strong whiskey or a decent gin. But even more so, people should get their houses blessed. Bring back the blessing of houses.
I have my house blessed.
Yes.
I'm going to get mine blessed.
Every single one that I've ever been in, I've had the priest trying to get it blessed.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. But apparently if you do encounter a ghost, you have to speak to them with respect, with great respect and reverence.
I don't think you can invite them into your house, can you?
Well, they're already there, that's the problem. But you have to be respectful of their space.
I mean, I'm not sure it's
believe in any of that stuff, Mike?
I'm not sure it's really top of people's list of concerns at the moment, to be quite honest.
But the things that they don't want us to talk about, like ghosts or UFOs and whatever, these are the things that should be, UFOs in particular. One day we're all going to wake up and we say...
You keep saying that. You love it. You love a UFO.
Yeah. There has been so much evidence about UFOs and all officialdom goes, let's not talk about them, or if you're a TV presenter, laugh at it. Somebody saw a UFO. What's funny about that? I don't think it's funny.
Tell me.
I know a man who is an exorcist for the Vatican. Yeah.
There's one in every diocese.
Yes.
Is there really? Yes.
So the thing is, it'll be top of your list if you knew about it, I'll tell you that. Right. What else have you got?
Wow. Should we talk about the Olympics? Team GB are now on 2 gold medals, 3 silvers and a bronze.
2, 3, 5, 6 medals.
2, 3 and 1. Yes. That's what that's it, isn't it? Yes.
Yep, that's 6. Good.
A School of Thought predictions 55 medals in total.
We're currently 3rd, I think, in the charts. Last night we were 3rd. That's
not
amazing,
too shabby, is it?
I think that's all that lottery funding as well that's gone in.
Yeah.
And as an aside, 17 girls from the Sacred Heart schools from around the world are representing their countries in the Olympics. Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that nice?
What, is that just like coincidence?
I don't know.
Elite.
It can't be, can it?
Gosh, I don't know.
So I don't see how it can be.
And one of our own, the British Olympian at the moment, Georgia Bell, she also went to Sacred Heart as well. Andy Bell's daughter. And she's going to be running in the 800 metres. It's a phenomenal story.
Wow.
She came out of lockdown running park runs and has gone back up. She's 30 and gone back up now to elite sportswomen.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's incredible. She's incredible.
Yeah, she is. And Tom Daley yesterday, he had all but retired, sat on the sofa 16 months ago, said to his newborn son at the time, I want you to see me dive in the Olympics. Yeah. So he's just retrained himself back up to that elite level and won a silver yesterday. I mean, it's incredible.
It is. I mean, I think we almost take for granted how good we are at sport as a nation, because in global terms, we're quite a small country, you know. We really do punch above our weight, and it is something to celebrate. And, of course, watching the Olympics, I always kind of forget that it comes around again every 4 years, and you just see what human beings can achieve when they put their mind to something, you know, the excellence and the beauty of it, and the discipline, and it's genuinely inspiring stuff.
And that brings a question about schools and the idea that everyone's a winner and there shouldn't be any overall winner and all this sort of thing. And you wonder, would we continue to be winners if that sort of philosophy continues?
Well, I don't know how prevalent that attitude is in schools, but if it is there, then it's fun. It is fun. It's unhelpful because that isn't the real world. That isn't how the real world operates. And you're right. I mean, that could suck some of the life out of our sporting programme. But I mean, based on recent examples of Olympics and other competitions, and based on this Olympics so far, that obviously hasn't had the impact that you're suggesting.
Because it didn't happen 10, 15 years ago, so it wouldn't affect the Olympians that are currently in the squad. It will start to ripple down because that is the norm now, and that is the narrative that schools are pushing, that everyone's a winner. There's no first, there's no second. It's all about the taking part. Wake up, smell the coffee, guys. It ain't.
We've got Fatima Whitbread on.
I'm not sure we needed to quite segue into the negative quite so quickly, but anyway, never mind. Let's celebrate the results. They're good ones.
Now, hopefully lots more.
Well, they've a long way to go. They've got to get to 55 medals or so,
from 6, yes.
From that. So
they've had a great start, and I'm glad to see it.
There's a while to go.
Can we do the ABBA story,
let's
please?
do it.
Yeah.
Claire, SOS, I've started talking like ABBA.
This is a remarkable story because there's been, historically, people that have had either strokes or some form of brain injuries. Some of them have actually woken up with different accents. Some of them have woken up speaking in tongues. Some of them have woken up having smoked sometimes 60 a day to waking up never even remembering to having smoked. This is a lady who is from Hillingdon in West London, and she's English, and she's always been English, never moved away, English has always been the first language in her home. she's almost immediately started speaking with a Swedish accent. What? She would say yeah instead of yes. And her friends say, what's happened to you? Well, she had a heart attack, and then the doctors now think she might have had a mini TEI. So it's really remarkable. So there we are.
I find foreign accent syndrome absolutely fascinating.
It
You hear
is.
about it more and more, people waking up with accents that they've never even been exposed to.
Exactly. It's really quite unbelievable.
I find now that I finish people's sentences. So if you finish and you say, you know, oh, goodness me, and it's, you know, Mamma Mia, there you go.
Yeah, well.
I then start singing the song. Song comes into my head. I associate words with songs. Or
Do you?
lyrics, but yeah.
Is that how you learn people's names and stuff?
No.
No?
I don't know your name, Mary. I can't remember anybody's. I have to write people's names down on big bits of paper.
I think you're good with names.
I think you are.
No, look at me there. Look, I write Jeremy Hunt, Rachel Reeves. It's all written there.
Oh no, but that's just handy, I think.
Is that? Did you really spell his surname like that, though?
The what?
Did you really spell his surname like that?
Whose surname?
She's pulling your leg. Pulling your leg.
All right.
How long have we got left? 1 minute. OK, let's have a look at...
What's your favourite ABBA song?
Gimme, gimme, gimme. Got to be.
Give you what?
Gimme, gimme
A man after midnight.
I think, yeah, there's nothing that tops that one.
Oh, there is.
Oh, there is? No, there's not.
Yeah, there is.
That's the best one.
Chiquitita?
No.
Take your teeth out.
Take your teeth out.
Right.
Chiquitita.
Right, okay.
It's good in the film.
We'll put them back in because we're back at 8:30.
Now we've got Mike on the spot here.
I mean, Gimme 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 was a cracker, isn't it?
It is a cracker. I don't think it can be topped.
Let's agree on that point. Yes.
Good. Yes, Eamonn?
Dancing Queen.
OK.
Because I was 16 and a girl danced with me at 16 and I could tell she wanted to be my dancing.
Oh, there's a nice story.
Very romantic.
Very romantic.
Very nice.
Yeah, she walked out the door with somebody else. But anyway,
well, that's less so.
Well,
Annie
you go.
Shuttleworth, we'll say good morning to you. What's the weather going to do today?
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be another very hot day, likely hotter today than yesterday, dry and sunny for most of us, and it will stay warm and humid overnight as well. There's still a weak weather front across northwestern areas, bringing some hazier sunshine to parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of Wales through this morning. That will sink southwards slowly through the day into central areas of England, bringing the hazier sunshine here. But elsewhere, long-lived, strong sunshine, and it will feel very warm indeed. As I said, hotter today than yesterday. 32 degrees is possible in the south and east. Could be the hottest day of the year so far. Widely, though, we're in the mid to high 20s across England and Wales. And it is going to be a hotter day for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland too. Across the far north of Scotland, though, the Northern Isles, we've got a bit of a brisker breeze, a risk of the odd shower here. Dry, though, elsewhere across Scotland. Temperatures still in the 20s this evening. To Northern Ireland as well, a bit more cloud around, particularly across southeastern areas. That hazier sunshine into central areas of England and Wales. But across the south coast, temperatures still in the high 20s this evening. If you are heading to the beach, sea temperatures are around 18 degrees across the south coast at the moment. Now, as we head into Wednesday, it should stay dry overnight. We've still got high pressure dominating our weather. There will be a bit of mist and fog developing here and there. And across the north of Scotland, it will still stay fairly fresh overnight. Temperatures still dipping down into the single figures. A different story further south, temperatures in the mid to high teens, and the humidity starting to increase overnight tonight. And that's because we've got this threat of thunderstorms coming ever closer from the near continent. That may affect the Olympics through Wednesday and into Thursday. More likely we'll see that thunderstorm risk in the UK through Thursday, but there is a risk through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening. Away from that thunderstorm risk, though, temperatures still in the mid-20s and the high 30s are still possible. Have a great day.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at Junction 9 at Bannockburn is closed for emergency repairs. There are some cancelled Merseyrail train services into and out of Liverpool Central through Kirkdale because of a faulty train. In the West Midlands, the A4124 is closed eastbound along Wolverhampton Road at Heathtown in Wolverhampton after an accident. The M25 in Surrey is partly blocked anti-clockwise by an accident at Junction 13 at Staines, with queues from Junction 15 for the M4. Also in Surrey, the A240 is partly blocked by an accident just before Tolworth Station, causing queues heading away from Ewell. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. The M20 in Kent is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 9 and 8 from Ashford to Maidstone, causing queues. In Hampshire on the A27, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down just after the Key Street roundabout in Fareham.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on.
Just go for it. It's an absolute must.
Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Horror in Southport as the seaside town is devastated by a knife attack which has shocked the whole country.
2 children have been killed and 9 injured, 6 critically at a dance workshop.
A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder.
Winter fuel scrap. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, announces fuel payments will now only be given to pensioners on benefits.
The Conservative leadership race is on. 6 senior Tories will battle it out to replace Rishi Sunak as party leader.
Olympic chaos. The men's triathlon event has been postponed this morning just hours before it was due to start, as pollution levels in the Seine are found to be too high.
And today could see the hottest day of the year in the UK, with temperatures expected to soar to 32 degrees.
Good morning. It's going to be a hotter day today than yesterday, and the humidity will rise this week. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
1 minute past 8 o'clock. A very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I think it's fair to say on what should be a very happy day, a very sunny day, Britain's a very sad country today.
It really is. We've got so many messages coming through on gbnews.com/you'll in response to this horror in Southport. Janet says, 24 hours ago, parents got their excited children up. They put on their dancing clothes, they got taken to a hall, they were given a kiss and left in a safe place. This morning, these parents are either grieving or sat by their injured children. Others are unhurt physically, but they are traumatised. I also believe some brave adults have been injured. The horror that faced those emergency services.
Yeah, and what's going through people's mind is they grieve for the people who have lost. They will have known the people who died and the children who died, but also thinking that could have been my child.
I think any parent can relate to that, can't they? Just dropping their children off at a holiday club. That child would have been so excited to have gone, and you're leaving them in what you think is a safe place. I mean, I was reading some witness accounts this morning of children running from the hall, saying to their mummies who are waiting outside, "Mummy, I've been stabbed."
Well, we're all stunned by this, shocked by this, sickened by this, it has to be said, and we all ask the question, why? Maybe to give us some of the answers, let's go to Sophie Reaper in Southport for us this morning, where the sun is shining and it should be a lovely day, but it isn't. It isn't, Sophie.
Absolutely not. And I think in the coming days, why will be the question on people's lips. But this morning, it's more of a sad tone here in Southport as people begin to grieve for those 2 lives lost yesterday, those 2 small lives lost yesterday. Of course, 9 other children injured in the attack, as well as 2 adults. The community already starting to come together this morning. We've already seen people come and lay flowers, lay messages of condolences and support for those families who, as you say, will still be at the bedside of their children who were injured in the attack. Now, this morning, we're expecting Home Secretary Yvette Cooper to join us here on Hart Street in Southport, where we're expecting her to lay flowers, as well as to meet with community leaders, as well as the police chief constable here in Merseyside. Of course, elsewhere yesterday, Prime Minister Keir Starmer commenting on the attack, and this is what he had to say. I think there's been some kind of technical issue there, unfortunately. We will hear that statement from the Prime Minister a little bit later on, perhaps. But we've also heard, for example, from King Charles yesterday. He said, "My wife and I have been profoundly shocked to hear of the utterly horrific incident in Southport today. We send our most heartfelt condolences, prayers and deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of those who have so tragically lost their lives, and to all those affected by this truly appalling attack." Now, as you mentioned, Eamonn, Southport is it's a homey town, it's a quiet town, it's nestled on the Merseyside coastline. People will have memories of years gone by of Southport coming and enjoying the promenade and everything this town has to offer. But now there's that horrific attack that has happened that people, I'm sure, will remember for many years to come.
Can't even imagine the horror, Sophie Reaper. Thank you.
Just here talking about Southport and, you know, the fact that it is a seaside town. It's got a certain atmosphere to it. It's near Blackpool. It's on the west coast there of England. And just, you know, a relaxed place, it has to be said. You know, there's a nice shopping area to it. A lot of footballers live in Southport.
Yeah, it looks like a really lovely place. And that street where Sophie is standing is apparently every single house has either a child or a grandchild in it. It's a really family area.
We're going to find out more about this young man. We can't find out his name because of his age. But, you know, why would he have been in Cardiff and then he goes and lives where he lives now? And why would he seek out a children's club? And why? We just keep on to all of that.
But you can't comprehend it, can you? Because you can't comprehend the evil.
The evil.
And the attack on innocence. It's just horrific. Do keep your reflections coming through. We've had so many this morning. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Let's turn to politics now, and the Chancellor has controversially scrapped winter fuel payments for 10 million pensioners as part of her mission to save, quite a lot of money. She says there's a big black hole in spending out there.
Well, charities are warning that the move could plunge millions into fuel poverty, but it doesn't stop there.
Speaking in the Commons yesterday, Rachel Reeves blamed the £20 billion black hole entirely on the former government.
I am announcing today that I will hold a budget on October the 30th, alongside a full economic and fiscal forecast from the Office for Budget Responsibility. We have inherited a projected overspend of £22 billion. Some, including the Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Chancellor, have claimed the books were open. How dare they?
Well, and we had the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, and he's thinking, how dare I, bring it on. He was in fighting form.
He was riled up, wasn't he?
He was riled up yesterday as well about this. If you're riled up about what you heard or in defence or against what Rachel Reeves said or plans to do, let us know. And she's got a budget coming, and that budget's going to be, I think, in October.
October the 30th, yes. So, big questions. Could tax rises be next? Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Adam Cherry. And that is the question on everyone's lips, isn't it? That tax rises are now more than hinted after the Chancellor cut winter fuel payments.
Yeah, that's right. Yesterday, the Chancellor saying difficult decisions are coming in October. And actually, after the statement, which we've just shown footage of, we attended a press conference, us political journalists, held by the Chancellor in the Treasury. And we all asked the same question. What does this mean? Can you guarantee that there won't be raises to capital gains tax, inheritance tax, pension credit? And she was tight-lipped, and she will be until October, because the reality is she has relatively few levers she can pull. She has said that she will not raise taxes on working people, which means no raises to income tax, national insurance or VAT. So she's boxed in, really. And as you say, the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, is very keen to go on the counter-attack over this. The Chancellor yesterday laying the blame for that £22 billion black hole at the feet of the previous government. And last night, the Shadow Chancellor writing to the Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, saying, hold on, these figures don't add up, because just last week, the main estimates, which is the government spending plans signed off by senior civil servants, those figures presented to Parliament last week differ from the Treasury audit documents that the Chancellor gave to Parliament yesterday. So what's going on? Where's this discrepancy? Also, of course, the inflation-busting pay rises for public sector workers costing around £9 billion. Now, that comes from the recommendations of the independent pay bodies. But that's still a political choice. So there's arguments over whether this £22 billion was inevitable, or is really the Chancellor blaming the previous government for choices she made.
And Adam, it is important to reflect as well, isn't it, that of this £22 billion black hole that Rachel Reeves describes, about £10 billion of that is the pay rise given to public sector workers. Now, whether or not that is deserved, of course, depends on where you sit, really, on that one. But that is a political choice, isn't it? But it has been blanketed in with this £22 billion black hole.
As you can see there and not hear, a few problems there audio-wise, so we'll leave Adam there, and instead we'll bring you up to date with other stories coming into the newsroom on this Tuesday morning. And Greenwich Police have launched an urgent appeal for a little girl named Udine, who is just 6 years old after she went missing in South East London last night.
Anyone with information leading to her whereabouts is urged to call 999 as soon as possible.
The former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards has been charged with making 37 indecent images of children.
He's accused of having 6 Category A images, 12 Category B images and 19 Category C images in his possession. Confirmed by the Metropolitan Police, the offences are claimed to be linked to images shared on WhatsApp. They're alleged to have taken place between December 2020 and April 2022. He will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow.
The first public hearing in a long called for public inquiry into the Omagh bombing will begin later today. The probe is led by Chairman Lord Turnbull. It's examining whether the atrocity could have been prevented by UK authorities. Some 29 people, including a woman pregnant with twins, were killed in the dissident Republican bomb attack which devastated the County Tyrone town nearly 30 years ago.
Now, it's a very hot day today. Let's get all of the weather updates now with Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be another very hot day, likely hotter today than yesterday. Dry and sunny for most of us, and it will stay warm and humid overnight as well. There's still a weak weather front across northwestern areas, bringing some hazier sunshine to parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of Wales through this morning. That will sink southwards slowly through the day into central areas of England, bringing the hazier sunshine here. But elsewhere, long-lived, strong sunshine, and it will feel very warm indeed. As I said, hotter today than yesterday. 32 degrees is possible in the south and east. Could be the hottest day of the year so far. Widely, though, we're in the mid to high 20s across England and Wales. And it is going to be a hotter day for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland too. Across the far north of Scotland, though, the Northern Isles, we've got a bit of a brisker breeze, a risk of the odd shower here. Dry, though, elsewhere across Scotland. Temperatures still in the 20s this evening. To Northern Ireland as well, a bit more cloud around, particularly across southeastern areas. That hazier sunshine into central areas of England and Wales. But across the south coast, temperatures still in the high 20s this evening. If you are heading to the beach, sea temperatures are around 18 degrees across the south coast at the moment. Now, as we head into Wednesday, it should stay dry overnight. We've still got high pressure dominating our weather. There will be a bit of mist and fog developing here and there. And across the north of Scotland, it will still stay fairly fresh overnight. Temperatures still dipping down into the single figures. A different story further south, temperatures in the mid to high teens, and the humidity starting to increase overnight tonight. And that's because we've got this threat of thunderstorms coming ever closer from the near continent. That may affect the Olympics through Wednesday and into Thursday. More likely we'll see that thunderstorm risk in the UK through Thursday, but there is a risk through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening. Away from that thunderstorm risk, though, temperatures still in the mid-20s and the high 30s are still possible. Have a great day.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Everybody talks about how they're going to dress for good weather. When I say everybody, for women it's easy. Women it's easy. You wear
a dress.
Yes. So there's plenty of ventilation going on or whatever. For men, it's much more restricted. So
yeah, look at you in your dark jacket.
Look at me today, but we've got to reflect the news as well. And
there's that as well.
Sometimes I think, you can't be too extravagant on certain days about certain things. And but so what am I going to wear? I think I'm going to resist the call to wear shorts.
What, tomorrow? You're not wearing them today?
No, today. But
when you go home and have an outfit
I think a lot
change.
of people, I go out in the office here, and a lot of the girls will be saying to me, "Eamonn, wear your shorts, or get your shorts on things." And you've seen some of the outfits that are out there today.
I have, yeah.
People that are differently dressed today.
Yeah.
And you know who I'm talking about.
I do know who you're talking about. Yeah. But it's funny because even...
She's now laughing in my ear.
Do you know Bruce Devlin, the comedian?
Yes.
So he came onto my show on Saturday morning wearing shorts. I was like, oh, Bruce. Because you're not used to seeing these things.
Yes. Should you ask permission before you wear shorts?
No, I don't think you need to ask permission. I think lots of people enjoyed seeing his legs out.
His legs out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not many days where you can do it, to be honest.
But there's certain people like Paul Coit. Why would you want to see him in shorts for? You wouldn't, would you?
He'll definitely be in shorts now. He's in
He's
Croatia.
on his holidays, so I can say what I want about him. He actually sent me a picture of him in his flip-flops. He was on a sunbed, and he actually...
Oh, he's sending you feet pictures?
He sent me, like his legs. He was showing me the view and whatever it is, and there was his feet in his blue and white flip-flops all in there.
How does that make you
feel?
Do you know
what I can't wear? Sandals. Sandals that, and they hook between your toe there.
Yeah, flip-flops. Or thongs, as the Aussies would call it.
Well, I can't wear them.
No, they're not very comfortable, are they?
No.
You're better in
Lots of people seem to wear them, and they seem to be very
You're better in a sandal, I think.
I do like, and I get criticised for this, what are those big spongy ones called?
Crocs.
Crocs.
Oh, no, Eamonn, no. No. We have to draw the line there.
My kids are like that,
we
and
have
they
to
say
draw
that
the
as
line.
well, yeah.
Well, they're right. Your children are right.
But you can get badges for your Crocs as well.
That
dress them up a bit.
No.
No?
No, that needs to be stopped.
Well, I think
immediately.
Crocs are good.
No, they're gardening shoes, indoor shoes at a push.
Old people
Never wear
shoes.
them out.
Old
Never
people's-
wear them outdoors.
No?
Ever.
I find they've got good suspension, though. It's like putting suspension in your knees and your
I wouldn't
ankles.
know. I've never tried. I never will.
Seriously?
Never.
Well, there we go.
There you go.
Still plenty of time for you to try our competition, our Great British Giveaway. And why should you try that?
Well, you could buy lots of Crocs with this amount of money, couldn't you?
You could buy an awful lot of Crocs.
Or better shoes, in fact.
What's Crocs short for? Is Crocs like crocodile?
I would imagine so, yeah.
Of course, you don't know anything about that.
Well, I don't know anything about Crocs, no.
Right.
But you could win £30,000 in tax-free cash in the Great British Giveaway. You really could be our next big winner.
Croc-a-doodle-doo. Have a go.
Here's how.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. We wish you all the very, very best. Still to come. We've got Dougie Beattie, our Northern Irish reporter, and he's going to be talking about this whole Omagh bombing inquiry. And, you know, you talk about stories that you've covered in your life. And we mentioned Dunblane earlier on, which was horrific, absolutely
tragedy.
Very badly affected me being there. And the other one that did was Omagh, this inquiry 25 years after that tragic Saturday in County Tyrone. We're going to be talking, Dougie's going to be previewing this inquiry, and we're going to be doing that next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
When you think of the latest culinary trends, it might not be prawn cocktail, toad in the hole, or a jam roly-poly that springs to mind. But it's not for Gen Z or Gen Z TikTokers who are determined to make a comeback for these British classics. Now, 2/3 of Gen Z now rely on TikTok for cooking ideas. So is it time for the revival of the best of British dishes? Restaurant critic William Sitwell, good to see you this morning. For us, these things never went out of style. They've always been eating the prawn cocktail, the toad in the hole, the cottage pies. It's the best kind of food.
I think the main thing is in terms of trends. We've seen this for not decades, but literally centuries. The trends in food publishing, and it doesn't matter if it's on digital in a book, always goes. The swing is from complicated, modern, faddy to traditional, simple, and so on. So there's been this thing in publishing for literally centuries where you go from, for example, you know, Jamie Oliver's sort of 7-minute, is it 3-minute meals, to the next trend, which is that's too simple. You know, we need to take time and we need to get back to traditional food. The other thing is, and I think, you know, if you are a food faddist, if you're obsessed with fermented cabbage and putting kimchi on everything, then you might have missed out on some of these wonderful traditions. Good food exists because it nourishes the soul. Good traditional recipes, British recipes, are not impossible to cook. So even the loonies on TikTok, I'm so glad I'm as ignorant as TikTok as you guys are of kimchi.
Yeah, and William, actually, this kind of food is so satiating, full of nutrients. I was saying to Ellie off air, you know, our grandparents lived on this stuff, meat, potatoes and veg. It was quite simple.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hooray!
25 years after the event, the public inquiry into the Omagh bombing of 1998 is set to get underway. It was started in 2021 after a court found the explosion, which killed 29 people and marked the worst atrocity of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, could potentially have been prevented. Let's go to Omagh, and our Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie will put all of this in context. We're talking about 25 years ago. It seems like yesterday, Dougie.
Well, it does, Eamonn, and actually driving through this provincial town this morning, it actually brings you back to that particular day. I remember it very well, a Saturday afternoon. I remember the aftermath of it as well, and it is really poignant to me because 2 days after that I welcomed my son into this world, and you know, things do affect you when you're in the media, and at that time I looked at him and thought, what sort of world have I brought him into? And these people here, 29 of them dead, 2 unborn children, and over 200 injured here. And there was never any answers given to these people, the loved ones of those that suffered and those that were killed. And it was a normal Saturday afternoon, people going about doing their shopping, many of them shopping for school uniforms. And it was the single biggest atrocity in the Northern Ireland Troubles. But what was the really bad point about this was that the Good Friday Agreement had been signed just months earlier. It was over. People in Northern Ireland were very joyful, looking forward to a new future. And of course, this then happened. Now, the families have tried to get answers here, and this will not bring any prosecutions, but they're having to go round the back door almost to try and get the answers that they seek. They don't seek compensation, they just want to know why and who knew what before it happened. And of course, they're looking then at Tony Blair's government, because at that stage, he didn't want to upset, which was a very fragile infant peace in Northern Ireland. And the investigation, previous court cases have really brought it out that there was a lot of intelligence knowing that this was coming into a town in Northern Ireland, and a lot of that was because the bomb came from south of the border. Now, this inquiry will look to see what the British intelligence services knew and could it have been prevented. But of course, the Republic of Ireland are not taking part in this, and that has angered a lot of families here, because that, you know, the bomb originated south of the border, and they really see that the Garda Síochána and the intelligence in the south should be helping them with this, because there was no combatants in this. This was truly the slaughter of the innocents. So the inquiry will open today. It will open. Lord Turnbull will call for a 2-minute silence to remember those that died. He will then set out the case and what they're going to look at, and what evidence they already have, and really assume that will be put forward in a legal form, if you like, because, as I say, there is no convictions at the end of this inquiry. But they will then have the defence, if you like, will then put forward their case, and then they will really adjourn until January, February, when we will start to get down to the real nitty-gritty, and we start hearing statements from those that were affected by this bomb on that day, and really see where this inquiry will go after that. So it's really January, February will be the time. Today will be a very brief hearing setting out exactly what it intends to look at.
So important, so vital. Who knew what? Did governments collaborate on this? Did the secret services know the people involved? Who were they watching? Why were they watching them? Why didn't they act on all of this? And you just telling it in real terms there, Dougie, about to become a dad and welcoming your child into the world. And I remember I was sitting, the weather was like today. The weather was so good that particular Saturday. And I was sitting watching Gillette Soccer Saturday. Jeff Stelling on the telly, watching the football results and the things at half-time, the latest scores and whatever, and then hearing that the bomb that Saturday afternoon, where people had gone out shopping, people were out sightseeing, all sorts of things. And this is why, you know, if you live in Bradford or you live in Plymouth or you live, you know, in Cardiff or whatever, that you've got to realise this could have been your town. This was another part of the United Kingdom, and these people were massacred. And I went straight down. I mean, almost only, 60 miles or so from Belfast, and I went straight down there. And it will always live with me, Dougie, the smell. There's a smell of a bomb that people don't recognise these things. Glass under your feet, that noise of broken glass under your feet. It was one of the most hideous things that I never, ever would want to relive again. And knowing the dead, and not only the dead, but the fact that there were children again amongst them, people that were on school trips and things. It was awful. And I just wanted to put that in context, Dougie, for people, because, you know, it can all sound very boring, but when you say why this inquiry is taking place, there'll be no prosecutions, whatever, but people want answers.
That's exactly it, Eamonn, and you explain it beautifully with the smells and the sounds. I mean, that particular day I was out fishing, and I'll never forget it, with my father-in-law, and it was only 2 days to go until my wife was to give birth, and yes, we were hurriedly sent down the road. And what you see after a bomb, what you hear, particularly from relations that are arriving at the scene of a bomb, will live with you forever. And the very fact that this was not a bomb attack at a military, it wasn't a bomb attack at a police service, it was a bomb in the centre of a town where people were out enjoying the day, and it became the biggest single atrocity of the Troubles. And for all the inquiries that are going on in Northern Ireland, in fact, the Labour government have done away with that legislation bill on the past and letting inquiries go once again because they were challenged by the Republic of Ireland's government. And as you say, when you enter this town, those sights, those smells come back to you. And you wonder why this particular inquiry, why people are having to take a civil action for an inquiry to be held into the slaughter of the innocents, is beyond me. And hopefully this inquiry will get to the bottom of it.
It all, Dougie, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
We've just had an update on that missing 6-year-old girl in London. Greenwich police have released new footage as they launch an urgent appeal for the little girl named Eudine, just 6 years old. She went missing from the southeast London suburb yesterday of Thamesmead. She was last sighted at midday. The police say anyone with information leading to her whereabouts is urged to call 999 as soon as possible. And that's the footage we can see there on our TV screens. A 6-year-old little girl walking through a car park, it looks like, playing with the birds by herself. That's the last footage that we have of that 6-year-old little girl named Eudine, just released by Greenwich Police.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk all things Olympic, and we do it with Olympic medalist, Olympic legend, Fatima Whitbread, talking to her right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at Junction 9 at Bannockburn is closed for emergency repairs. You'll have to continue on to the northbound M9 there. There's some cancelled Merseyrail train services into and out of Liverpool Central through Kirkdale, thanks to a faulty train. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, there are non-clockwise delays in patches, where it's taking around half an hour from Junction 24 at Denton to just after 1 at Stockport after an accident. In the West Midlands, Wolverhampton Road at Heathtown in Wolverhampton's closed eastbound after an accident. In London, on the North Circular, it's now to a single lane eastbound, where there's an accident just after the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow with queues from Edmonton. On the M25 in Surrey, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed anti-clockwise at Junction 13 at Staines after an accident, with queues from Junction 17 at Maple Cross. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in queues approaching the M25.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the nice thing about the Olympic Games, one of the nice things is that we throw back, we memorise, where we were, what age we were when certain Olympics happened.
Yeah.
And there's a woman we're going to talk to now who I can remember so much about the Olympics she took part in, and that's Fatima Whitbread. Fatima, lovely to see you. And I tell you wouldn't want to fall out with her because she could throw a spear. I tell you, she could do that. The thing, Fatima, is, and we're going to talk about your medals and your Olympics shortly. But what age do you have to be? I mean, I remember being at school and discus maybe, but it was a heck of a skill to really throw a javelin. How old were you when you began to think, I'm good at this?
Of course, 11 years old, actually. I mean, obviously, being brought up in children's homes, it was always told to me at 16 you were going to be leaving and going independent living at 16. And I kind of feared that and wondered what was it would I do, and I saw the Olympic Games with Mary Peters, an Irish lady.
Oh, I know her well.
Yeah, well, there you go.
1972 Olympics for her.
Exactly, and it was 1972 when I saw her. I was 11 years old, and I realised this is something I could do, be a sportswoman. Sports was my saviour, and that's when it first started for me. That Mary Peters was a great inspiration to me, and that I started running out in the garden, picking up the bamboo sticks and throwing them down the end of the garden.
Goodness me. But then I remember with you, the 1980 Olympics, Moscow, yeah?
That's right.
And how controversial, what about the pressure? And the reason I bring this up, Ellie, was that there was a ban over the Afghan war. America was involved in it, and the Afghans, Russia was involved in it. And America pulled out, and other countries pulled out. And Britain was under huge pressure not to go.
I remember that.
Did you feel that pressure?
I was 19. It was my first experience behind the Iron Curtain as well, because back then in the 80s, 70s and 80s, it was, the Iron Curtain there, communism. And Britain did come under a lot of fire. And I remember it was the Ollie Bear, the Olympic mascot. And I was holding this Ollie Bear, the mascot, and somebody said to me, do you think you should be here? And I thought, well, looking at the Olympic Games, it's all about peace and making a better world. you know, and it's not changed. For me, it's all about excellence, respect and friendship. The Olympic Games is all about bringing everyone together, keeping politics out and trying to make a better world. And that's really where it all started for me. It was my first Olympic Games. It was a good blood-in. I learned a little bit about what it was like to live in an Olympic village with over 253 countries that were competing, the best of the rest in the world. I mean, that was quite an awakening for me. You know, and then, of course, I went on to 3 other Olympics. So
not just do 3 other Olympics. You want tell people the medals you won at those Olympics.
Well, Eamonn, obviously, I've won 11 major medals at championships, broke world records. I've got silver, bronze, golds, and for me, it was all about the journey. I mean, you know, an Olympic Games is a wonderful experience. The destination on which I arrived to win these medals. When you look at the backstory of a lot of these athletes, sportsmen and women, it's an amazing feat what they do. You know, to come back, you know, from adversity and then come into a sport or an event and pick up. You know, just to make an Olympic Games is an achievement, Eamonn. We shouldn't underestimate that. But to pick up medals, I mean, it's a real bonus. And for me, you know, it was, when I look back, a wonderful opportunity. A little bit like watching the Olympic Games at the moment. We did amazing on our first day. We've never medalled, and yet we did in the cycling. And then, of course, yesterday, Tom and Noah picking up medals, and also our canoe, Adam Burgess also winning a medal, and, of course, in the events team with this jumping, they've picked up medals. I think it's, you know, it's amazingly inspirational for a lot of our young people today to actually watch an Olympic Games and think, what is it could I do, you know?
It is so inspirational, Fatima, and you are an Olympic legend. And I just wanted to ask you about what you were just talking about overcoming adversity, because you had a really difficult start to life and you've gone on to win all of these medals, to be an Olympic legend.
But in a way, maybe that was her motivation. I watched a documentary recently. Look at that. What?
That is what it's all about. Fatima's UK campaign. Children and young people matter. Because I actually run a campaign, and my ministry today is about looking after children in the care system and improving their life outcomes. You know, for me, I had a difficult start to my childhood, and I will never forget it. I mean, I always say I may have left the care system, but the care system hasn't left me. And I instantly understand the importance of giving our young children and young people the opportunity to also, you know, have good life outcomes. So Fatima's UK campaign is all about that. And it's a summit next year. Eamonn, I hope you're going to come.
No, I know we've talked about this before, and certainly, I mean, I believe in what you're doing. I think it's marvellous what you're doing, and that's why, you know, when you think about children, and children are so close to you, and you look at that horror that happened in Southport yesterday, I mean, things like that
exactly.
will really hit home hard.
Well, children are the innocent ones, aren't they, Eamonn? And this is what we look at when you think they're the future. We've got to start to put them back at the top. And it's a travesty when we see things like that, you know, Omagh, that happen. You know, children are the ones that are impacted. And, you know, it's, for me, you know, really important to be able to do the best we can and looking after their future. And so hopefully, you know, I'm going to the Pyrenees in September, Eamonn. That's my next challenge, the Bay of Biscay, from France to Spain and back. And hopefully people can go online, fatimascampaign.com, and give generously to help make a difference to these young people's lives. Because, as I say, children are the future.
Well, you've been on GB Breakfast before talking about that, and it's always a pleasure to see you and bringing back so many good memories. We could talk to you forever about all of that, but what an experience for you, what a motivation. And there's a very good documentary on Daley Thompson, and he would have been a contemporary of yours.
Yes, he would have been in the 80s too. 80s were golden years, you know. We had some great athletes, Ovetko, Thompson, Whitbread, you know, and, of course, you're in your height of your career too, and you're still going strong. So how's your back anyway, Eamonn?
Well, that's true. Do you know what I remember? When she was in the 1980 Olympics, I was working in a bar in a place called White Abbey in Belfast, and I remember pulling pints and watching her doing her thing at that particular time. And she went on. What did you get in Moscow? Was it a bronze you got in Moscow?
No, Moscow was too early for me. I actually, at that age, at 16, I was the first British female or male athlete junior championships to win a European gold. So, I mean, that was, again, it was all part of the build-up and the experience. So I'd like to see more of our youngsters given chance to go to Olympic Games to learn about the experience, because it's so much more than just winning medals. It's about learning to live as a big family within the village, amongst so many people. For me, that was what 1980 was all about. And of course I went on, as I said, to win the European Junior Championships. And of course after that, the rest is history. Broke world records. The rest is history. Well,
Fatima, we've got to go, but it's been brilliant talking to you. Are you enjoying the games? Are you enjoying things so far?
I love it. I love watching all the events. I like watching the gymnastics. I like watching the diving. I think all these are fantastic. Our athletes are doing superbly well. Yeah. Fingers crossed they can come back with the best ever medal tally that they've ever had at an Olympic Games.
Let's hope so. They're off to a good start.
Big shout out for our British athletes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. See ya. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Eamonn. Bye.
Thank you. We got the papers. Claire Muldoon, Mike Buckley, right after this.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
We're joined now by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who is outside Buckingham Palace for us.
Well, let's start with the expenditure, shall we? From the last year, it was £89.1 million. That's what the royal household spent. And one of the core parts of that expenditure was, of course, their big event last May, the coronation. £800,000 went into that. And then we should look at the engagements. You mentioned the number that King Charles made last year. Well, £4.2 million on those engagements, much of that travel. And then finally, how much that costs us all? Well, it's £1.29 per person. That's the cost of the monarchy to the taxpayer. But that really hides the truth of how that cash comes about, because all of the money that the royal household spends is actually theirs being given back to them by the Treasury. It comes from the Crown Estate surplus. That's a £16 billion portfolio they have, and their sovereign grant is made up of the surplus from 2 years prior. So in the year to 2022, there was about £350 million knocking around from the surplus. That was given all to the Treasury, and they were given back 15% as their core sovereign grant. Additional 10% was given towards the resurfacing of Buckingham Palace. That's been going on since Parliament voted on it in 2017. It's expected to take 10 years. But all in all, that's been about £86.3 million. And as you heard, the expenditure was £89 million. So how do they mix that gap? How do they close that gap in and cost out? Well, they make their own money as well from additional sources of income. And that was the gates, the receipts to Windsor Castle and their many palaces across the country, where people have paid about £10 million to visit in the last year.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Now, we're talking stories that are making the papers today with Claire and Mike, and we've got to find out, Claire, first of all, that little fat Kim Jong-un of North Korea.
Everything you've just said is true.
It is
factually.
True. Now, he's small and he's fat, and it's led to health problems for him.
Yeah, but not the thing about this is that South Korea have released important medical information about him because he's seeking answers to the Western medical land, and he needs treatment for high blood pressure. He needs treatment now for diabetes. All things linked to his obesity, and also his father and his grandfather died early of heart attacks. So this will be clearly playing on his mind. Now, his middle child, a young girl who is 12, has been mooted as his successor, but he himself has got siblings, so we really don't know what's happening with the successor, but she was brought in as his beautiful daughter and now changed to potential successor. Equally worrying.
Well, it's a concern because he's very young, isn't he? He's only 40.
Yeah.
Well, talking about successors, Mike, the Conservatives, of course, they've got their 6 leadership candidates lined up, but there are rules now. The Tory party are worried about them being feuding, fighting with each other. What are they going to do about it?
Well, I mean, and this is probably a good thing, actually. You remember, I mean, it seems like a million years ago now in political terms, back when Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss were running for leadership, you know, there was a lot of ill will and bad temper, you know, between them two and those two and their different campaigns. So this time round, the kind of the ruling body, the 1922 committee, as it's called in the Conservative Party, they've announced they're going to have this yellow card system. So if one of these 6 candidates or more of them step out of line and essentially start personal attacks, negative campaigning towards other candidates rather than putting forward their own programme, they're going to have this yellow card system. It's a little unclear in what I've read as to what that's actually going to mean, but I think there'll be some kind of sanction. They'll get the whips involved. Maybe, I mean, they may even get to the point of booting somebody out of the contest or threatening to do so. I mean, I don't know. But I think this call for high standards, good behaviour, you know, grown-up politics, basically, is a good way for this campaign to start.
Well, I'm not surprised because the campaign is so long, isn't it? 3.5 months. It's not helpful if you've got infighting and more chaos after all of that.
No, I agree.
Claire, let's take a look at this story, shall we? There's been a development this morning on the Seine and the sewage situation.
Well, there has, and it's affecting our triathlon athletes, actually, because they were due to do the swim part in the Seine. And Paris have known there has been issues with the cleanliness and the sewage in the Seine, and they've had to try to adopt other methods to try and get it cleaned up. They've not managed it. And with the heavy rain at the opening Olympic ceremony, that's brought even more sewage up from the drains and pumped straight into the Seine. And we, of course, like to think in this country that we are the only ones that suffer issues of water, sanitation in our waterworks. But the reality is, it's all over.
That's life, yeah.
Yeah, it is life. But, however, they took a ruling this morning. It's just been released. The triathlon men's swim will take place tomorrow, 10:45 GM time, 9:45 local time
will it really?
Tomorrow.
Because they've been testing the Seine now for 3 days in a row.
They have. They haven't passed any. No, it's still 100 times more than it should be. Level risk of E. coli, etc., etc.
And I was reading yesterday that if this continues, if it has to keep being postponed by a day at a time, it will get to the point where they do a run, a cycle, and then go back to a run. The athletes won't be able to do a swim,
which is a shame.
They haven't trained for that.
Yeah, exactly. And yet they're holding the surfing in Tahiti. Isn't it? It's so strange. Yes, they are.
Is Tahiti a French...
Used to be a French colony.
Yeah.
Yes.
They should have sent us there to do an OB. I would have been up for that.
Yes, that's the gig to get,
isn't it?
That's the gig
to get, exactly.
Next time.
Mike, let's talk about dating apps. Why has this caught your eye?
So, well, the news is that targeted dating apps that aim at a particular community, whether that's the Muslim community or the gay community, or, you know, pick another
the Labour community,
subset.
Mike, eh?
I don't think there is a Labour Party one, but maybe there ought to be. I mean, I could imagine that being quite popular, to be quite honest. But those apps, the more specific ones, they're doing better. I discovered this morning there's one aimed only at farmers. If you're a farmer, you can go on there. If you're not, you can't. So there you go. Farmers, obviously, some farmers just want to date another farmer, and fair play to them. Whereas the more generic ones like Tinder, they're seeing a drop in user numbers for some reason. So the thing I was reading didn't really know why, but it was saying that as a result, the companies that run these apps are aiming towards more specific targeted audiences. So there you go. If you're on the dating apps, you want to date a particular kind of person, you may well find an app that does it for you.
But meanwhile, Ofcom are taking action on scam calls. Tell us more.
So, I mean, this is good news. So Ofcom is the regulator that covers communications, I mean, obviously like radio and TV, but also the phone systems as well. There's an increasing problem with people abroad. I don't think we know from where, particularly phoning UK mobile numbers or landline numbers and spoofing the number. So taking the phone number, say, of a bank and pretending to be that bank, they're ringing them up and getting people to transfer money. And actually, this happened to a friend of mine recently. She was rung up, and the person, she was a bit suspicious of the person at the other end of the call, and they said, well, look at the back of your debit card, look at your front of your phone, I'm calling from that number. She then believed that this was the bank and transferred money she shouldn't have done, lost a lot of money, which I think she got back from the bank, but, you know, it's by the by. So it's good that Ofcom is cracking down on the phone providers to say you need to track these calls, and if you see a call coming in from abroad that is spoofing a UK number, just cut it off so it doesn't actually reach the consumer. So it's a good news story.
I agree with you, and a lot of the numbers that are coming through, that if you do reverse look up of the number that's actually called, it often gives you the information that you need to keep yourself safe financially. But the numbers often coming through are 0141, which is a Glasgow local code, or 0203, which is now the generic London code. So often you don't know if to pick it up or not. And then if you don't have your 4G switched on, you can't get the message, if there's any message that's left, until a few days later. So it's incredibly important, I think, that mobile phone networks and indeed Ofcom take the responsibility of this, because there has been so much, monumentally in fact, financial gain from scammers, and it has to stop. It's wrong on so many levels. I mean, we've got a government that wants to scam us now.
Financial gain, as you say, this is just money-making exploits at the cost of vulnerable people.
Yes.
And particularly old people.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
You said.
Well, one problem is the fact that the police just don't investigate these things. They don't. I mean, partly they just don't have the capacity because of such underfunding for the last 14 years. But that does need to change, because otherwise the scammers are just getting away with it.
But you know, Mike, I was watching. Well, I won't say what news story it was, but anyway, they were talking about, you know, our police officers are available for counselling and whatever it is, and I just thought, this is like saying phone your airline to find out what's
where
happening
your luggage
with a
is.
cancelled flight.
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen. It's lies. They don't have the staff. Naturally enough, they don't have the staff. I'm not criticising the police for it.
No.
I'm criticising the idea that people put around that there is this service in operation when it couldn't possibly.
I mean, I'm sure the vast majority of police officers do the best job that they can.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sure they do, but all five of them, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Guys, lovely talking to you both today. Claire Muldoon and Mike Buckley, thank you both.
Lovely to have us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's have a look at the weather with Annie.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be another very hot day, likely hotter today than yesterday. Dry and sunny for most of us, and it will stay warm and humid overnight as well. There's still a weak weather front across northwestern areas, bringing some hazier sunshine to parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of Wales through this morning. That will sink southwards slowly through the day into central areas of England, bringing the hazier sunshine here. But elsewhere, long-lived, strong sunshine, and it will feel very warm indeed. As I said, hotter today than yesterday. 32 degrees is possible in the south and east. Could be the hottest day of the year so far. Widely, though, we're in the mid to high 20s across England and Wales. And it is going to be a hotter day for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland too. Across the far north of Scotland, though, the Northern Isles, we've got a bit of a brisker breeze, a risk of the odd shower here. Dry, though, elsewhere across Scotland. Temperatures still in the 20s this evening. To Northern Ireland as well, a bit more cloud around, particularly across southeastern areas. That hazier sunshine into central areas of England and Wales. But across the south coast, temperatures still in the high 20s this evening. If you are heading to the beach, sea temperatures are around 18 degrees across the south coast at the moment. Now, as we head into Wednesday, it should stay dry overnight. We've still got high pressure dominating our weather. There will be a bit of mist and fog developing here and there, and across the north of Scotland it will still stay fairly fresh overnight, temperatures still dipping down into the single figures. A different story further south, temperatures in the mid to high teens, and the humidity starting to increase overnight tonight. And that's because we've got this threat of thunderstorms coming ever closer from the near continent. That may affect the Olympics through Wednesday and into Thursday. More likely we'll see that thunderstorm risk in the UK through Thursday, but there is a risk through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening. Away from that thunderstorm risk, though, temperatures still in the mid-20s and the high 30s are still possible. Have a great day.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction on Bannockburn's closed for emergency repairs. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, it's taking nearly half an hour clockwise from junction 24 at Denton, just after 1 at Stockport after an accident earlier. There are some cancelled Merseyrail train services into and out of Liverpool Central through Kirkdale thanks to a faulty train. Conway on the A55 North Wales Expressway, the westbound exit at junction 24 at Abergele is closed because of fire services activity. In the West Midlands, Wolverhampton Road at Heathtown in Wolverhampton's closed eastbound after an accident. In London on the North Circular, it's down to a single lane eastbound. There's an accident just after the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow with queues from Edmonton. On the M25 in Surrey, 2 lanes are closed anti-clockwise at junction 13 at Staines after an accident with queues from junction 17 at Maple Cross. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Horror in Southport as the seaside town is devastated by a knife attack which has shocked the nation.
2 children have been killed, 9 injured, 6 critically at a dance workshop.
A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder.
In other news, winter fuel scrap. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announces fuel payments will now only be given to pensioners on benefits.
The Conservative leadership race is on. 6 senior Tories will battle it out to replace Rishi Sunak as party leader.
Olympic chaos. The men's triathlon event has been postponed this morning, just hours before it was due to start. That's because pollution levels in the River Seine are found to be too high.
Today could see the hottest day of the year so far, with temperatures expected to soar to 32 degrees.
And Greenwich Police have launched an urgent search after 6-year-old Judine was reported missing in southeast London. Anyone with relevant information urged to call 999. What you're looking there is the last known footage of her, with her in the distance there.
Good morning. It's going to be a hotter day today than yesterday, and the humidity will rise this week. Find out all the details with me a little later on.
Just gone 1 minute past the hour of 9 o'clock on this Tuesday morning. A very good morning to you, wherever you're watching or listening from. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Just thanks very much for all your comments and calls. Jeanette says, basically, why do we not have a national day of mourning so we can express our grief about what happened in Southport? Jasmine says, my question is, how did the attacker enter a children's event? How did this go wrong? Well, it was open to parents. Parents at that time, coming up to midday, were there to collect their children.
Yeah,
they were
it was almost the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, to do that. The winter fuel pensioners situation, again, picking up a lot of reaction.
Peter says, I started work at 14. I worked hard all my life, paying my taxes and paying for a pension in old age. I'm still paying tax on my pension. Now they've taken away my winter fuel allowance, while immigrants are arriving and putting up in hotels and they get free heating. It's so wrong. Why are they looking after the people who keep this country? Why aren't they looking after the people who keep this country going?
Yeah. Stuart, is this how Labour is going to free up houses? By freezing pensioners out of theirs? And
Kane says $4 billion a year in foreign aid, but they decide to cut winter fuel payments.
OK, the whole country is really in shock today as we try to come to terms with the tragedy of Southport. A 17-year-old male has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder after 2 children died during what was being termed a ferocious knife attack.
Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Sophie Reaper, and I can only imagine the shock, the horror in Southport. This is a story that has absolutely shocked the nation.
Absolutely. The community here in Southport is reeling this morning after the news yesterday that that knife attack killed 2 children and left 9 others with injuries, as well as 2 adults also being injured as they try to protect the children at that Taylor Swift dance and yoga class. But the community has been fast to respond this morning. We're already seeing flowers being laid, as well as messages of condolence. One poem has been written and left here, and that's entitled Hope. There's also been a lot of support for the emergency services who were here on the scene. They, of course, responded at midday yesterday after reports of that major incident. Merseyside Police have been here on the scene ever since, and the community are doing what they can to support them. This morning we've been seeing energy drinks and bottles of water being brought out to the officers who have been on the scene for hours at a time. One lady a few moments ago came out and offered to make them bacon sandwiches. So a real sense of a community coming together here as they face the grief. I spoke to one gentleman earlier who'd come all the way from Liverpool, cycled in this morning just to lay flowers to show his support and sympathy for the family. Here's what he had to say.
It's shocking, absolutely shocking. I was just saying before, I heard the news last night and it did not half get to me. It was really upsetting, and it's just one of them things we will never forget. Definitely not in my lifetime. I mean, it's in our blood, isn't it? In our history. You know, anything that terrible happens, you know, we all come together. You know, this is just not representative of what Merseyside is like. You know, it's a lovely place. I've travelled up here, you know, 17 odd miles and gone 17 miles back just to lay flowers, you know, because it's just affected us so much. And
You can really hear the emotion in Tom's voice there, and I think that's something that's going to be felt across the entire Merseyside region. But as he says, support and coming together at times of tragedy and crisis is something that's built into the DNA of those people here in Merseyside, and that's what's going to be happening over the coming hours, the coming days even, as the community work together to support those people, those families who have been so hurt by this horrific knife attack.
Sophie, just to reflect for us, because I think it is really important, the community there is very family orientated, isn't it? Those houses and those streets behind you, they are filled with children, filled with grandchildren. This is not the place where you would expect something like this to happen.
Of course not. I mean, this is a residential area. All around me here, we're on a crossroads here. All around, there's residential buildings, there are homes, there are families, there's a newsagent's here, there's a pub and a cafe a little way down the road. This is a family area, and the residents this morning have commented that this isn't something you would expect here. One person yesterday, a witness, saying this isn't something you would expect in sunny Southport, it's more like something you would see over in America. So a real sense of shock alongside that sense of grief. Sorry, the police are just arriving. More police arriving on the scene here. Of course, it takes so many officers to hold down a police cordon like this, especially given the circumstances. We've seen a great deal of officers present here this morning, helping, of course, members of the community who have been potentially affected not only by the attack but by the cordon that remains in place. But just to reiterate, of course, there's a real sense of shock, a real sense of grief, a real sense of heartbreak here in this tight-knit community here in Southport.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much. We go to our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who joins us in the studio. Mark, obviously social media is going wild with accusations and all sorts of things. A lot of people not understanding how we and other news organisations are not allowed to report, name or speculate in any way.
Yeah, listen, I can understand how deeply frustrating it is for people. They think there is one narrative and it's being, as they see it, suppressed by the authorities. But in purely practical and legal terms, because this person is 17, they are regarded under law as a child. Anyone under 18 is. So they can't be named. Even if and when this person is charged, that would be normally the point where the name would come out and some of the background of that individual would come out as well on their first court appearance. But because this person is classed under the law as a child, any child has special protection under the law. So as deeply frustrating as that is, we won't get a name for this person unless this person is charged and then convicted in a court of law. Then it is very likely that a judge would move in and name them. We've had 17, 16, 15-year-olds named quite regularly before, but only after conviction.
And what do we know about this 17-year-old? What have the police said so far?
Well, again, very little, and they're telling people not to speculate, which again is just frustrating lots of people because, as I say, they are hearing about a particular narrative online. If I give you one instance, as we're not naming him, I think we're safe enough to say that, you know, in social media there was a suggestion that this individual was someone who had come across on a small boat last year. The police very deliberately then put out a statement last night in which they said he was born in Cardiff. So whatever the wider issues around perhaps an immigrant heritage or anything like that, that will come out in the fullness of time, I'm sure. But on that particular issue, according to what the police are putting out, it would appear to be wrong because the individual was born in Cardiff. But again, it just, you know, everything feeds into this narrative that many people believe is the authorities clamping down and, you know, they get very het up, for instance, and understandably so, when you hear from the authorities all the time that, you know, there's no motive here and we're looking at mental health issues. For instance, the recent stabbing of the soldier, the police are looking at potential mental health issues as an underlying motivation, and again with the Nottingham stabbings. So people are seeing this as almost the default position of the authorities, and in going and suggesting that there are mental health issues at play, it's almost as if it just closes down any kind of talk on the subject about other underlying causal factors.
What there is at play, Mark, over and over again, and you, in your position as correspondent on this show, you've talked about this, you repeat this over and over, and that is stabbings, that is knives. Where do we go after this? Is anything likely to change or not, or how on earth can you even change? The difficulty with knives is everything could be seen as a stabbing weapon,
Well, you and I are old enough to remember covering the Dunblane massacre. I was up in Scotland anchoring the news back then in 1996. And, of course, at that time, when Thomas Hamilton murdered 16 children and their teacher in a primary school in Dunblane, it was firearms that he used, and then there were much stricter gun laws imposed in the aftermath of that. And we've had very few fatal mass shootings since, really. The Cumbria shootings being one rare example of that, but it's so much different, as you allude to, with regard to knives, because they are so commonly available. And we've had government after government. The last government, I've lost count of the number of times they told us they're getting tougher on zombie knives and samurai swords being available over the internet, but yet they're still out there and available to be bought online. This government says they're going to tackle it as well. But even if they do tackle that, it doesn't take, someone 30 seconds to go down to their kitchen and take out a deadly knife from the kitchen drawer. They're just so readily available. It's difficult to know how you do actually combat that kind of deadly weapon being used in a mass attack like this.
How do you possibly police it? Mark White, thank you very much indeed.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.
I was reading this morning it's the worst knife attack in Britain since the London Bridge terrorist stabbing of 2017.
Yeah, also sad. Your ideas welcome. Politics, and the Chancellor has controversially scrapped winter fuel payments for 10 million pensioners. This is creating a lot of reaction this morning.
It certainly has, and charities now warning that the move could plunge millions into fuel poverty, but it doesn't stop there. Speaking in the Commons yesterday, Rachel Reeves blamed the £20 billion black hole entirely at the hands of the former government.
I am announcing today that I will hold a budget on October the 30th, alongside a full economic and fiscal forecast from the Office for Budget Responsibility. We have inherited a projected overspend of £22 billion. Some, including the Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Chancellor, have claimed the books were open. How dare they?
Right, let's go to Adam Cherry, our man there, and he'll tell us what the political fallout from all of this is. And we had a bit of a wing-ding in the House yesterday between Jeremy Hunt, the Shadow Chancellor, and the Chancellor herself on this one, and he came on our show today. He was not in a forgiving mood, it has to be said, Adam.
Yeah, that's right. A real row erupting this morning between the Chancellor Rachel Reeves and her predecessor, the now Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt. As you can see, we have. Sir, is our pensioners going to go cold this winter? That was Darren Jones there, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He, of course, is also involved in this because the Chancellor yesterday was laying the blame entirely, as you say, at the feet of the previous government. And now this row is developing with the Chancellor going further, saying that the previous Chancellor was lying and that the books weren't open. And you saw a little bit of that in the Commons yesterday. And now the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has also written to the Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, saying that, look, there's a discrepancy here that needs to be explained regarding the £22 billion black hole that the Chancellor spoke about yesterday. The discrepancy is this. So last week there were figures given to Parliament which were main estimates, and those were signed off by senior civil servants. Dragging the civil service into this row because those figures differ to what the Chancellor said yesterday regarding that £22 billion black hole. Now, another part of this row is over the pay rises for public sector workers. That is going to cost around £9 billion, and that's a political political choice, or at least that's what the Shadow Chancellor is arguing. So, as I say, this will develop over the day. No love lost between the Chancellor and her shadow at this time, guys.
Man, Adam, thank you very much indeed from a sun-kissed Downing Street this morning.
Now, some good news this morning. There is still plenty of time to enjoy a massive win this summer. Your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash.
You really could be our next big winner, and here's how you could do it.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on. Just go for it. It's an absolute must. Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, best of luck. Now, still to come, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce will be here to tell us what's coming up.
I feel as if
in
I've
their
won the
show.
jackpot already.
I know.
With those two there.
I know, they're going to be here at 9:30 and they'll be telling us all about it next.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, to enrich us on the best cheeses and wine to buy, I'm delighted to be joined by the CEO of Inflorescence, Jacinta Madison Wilson. Jacinta, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Also, thank you so much for bringing what is
what a Sunday you're having.
of wonderful... What do we have before us?
So, we've got 3 gorgeous wines to try today. We've got an English sparkling, we've got a beautiful rosé and a dessert wine, and, of course, cheese.
Wonderful.
And paired them all beautifully.
Now, English sparkling wine has had a bit of a renaissance.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it?
To use a French word to describe English sparkling wine. It's having a bit of a moment in the sun.
Absolutely. I just think it's so exciting that this is right on our doorstep, essentially, an hour out of London, and we're around beautiful vineyards.
The chalk sort of sediment is exactly the same as the Champagne region of France.
Yeah, our soils are really similar. We use the same grape varieties a lot of the time. We make it in exactly the same way as Champagne. Our climate is like Champagne was 40 to 50 years ago. So we're really kind of drinking it blind. You almost wouldn't know that you're not drinking champagne. But it's right here on our doorstep. We can stay local now.
Absolutely marvellous. Well, we've got... what is the best order to start?
OK, well, we're going to start with sparkling, because all things in life should start with sparkling. I got married a month ago, and this was actually the... Thank you so much. This was the wine I chose to have as our first wine that we served the guests. This is from a winery called Bluebell, which is in Sussex, and I've chosen to pair this with a lovely... kind of the English version of Camembert, which is called Tunworth. Okay. It's a very classic pairing of Champagne and Brie. So we're kind of going to do the English version of that now.
Classic.
Absolutely. Are you ready to get stuck in?
I am so...
OK.
Hang on. Is it cheese first or wine first?
I'd have a little sip of the wine first.
Sip of the wine, bite
have a little bite of the cheese and then some more wine. Get it all mixed up in there.
It's like a cheese sandwich.
Exactly. Yes.
OK, here we go. Cheers.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom. Look, I've got small again. Look. The seats decided.
Your chair keeps sinking down.
Seats decided to give up.
Oh dear. Well, we're almost at the end.
At least we got to 9:20.
Yeah,
before it did.
It's not a bad thing.
You do look quite low down there.
I just feel as I'm talking, just feel it going further and further down.
Sinking to the floor.
Anyway, save me. What have you got? What's making you angry today, Andrew?
Well, we're going to be talking. We've got that extraordinary video footage of the little girl who's gone missing from her home in South London. She's only 6 and went missing around midday. Alarm raised about 10 o'clock. We'll be updating on that. And, of course, the Home Secretary will be in Southport laying a wreath this morning.
Yeah.
What a terrible thing that is.
What do you know? Why do people hate children? You just look at it and you think, what is it with these people? You know, it's
beyond cool. Sick. And I actually wonder if the Prime Minister will go up with the Home Secretary, actually, because this is a truly shocking thing that's happened. Yeah. And you hear it on the radio, you think, well, that's America then.
Yeah,
right. You don't think this is a sleepy village on Merseyside near Southport, do you?
But you see, the other thing is, what can we ever do about it? Because I can understand how we legislate against guns, but how do you legislate against knives?
You can't, can you? It's about making sure that anybody that's showing any sorts of signs of mental illness in that regard, in collaboration with violent behaviour, petty crime, is watched, monitored.
And there's going to be questions, aren't there? That'll be the next thing, was this man known to authorities?
We've got a Chief Constable coming on today to talk about how he, in his patch, he's the Chief Constable of Norfolk, has stopped the scourge of shoplifting. He's got a zero-tolerance approach. You know, this is a big problem up and down the countries. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to ask him about how can a police force ever protect a community from this sort of thing? And I suspect the answer is they can't, really.
We're also going to be talking about this controversial taking the winter fuel allowance from pensioners unless you're on means-tested benefit.
Well, either she's very brave or very desperate to do that. But I think, actually, she's looked and she said, these old people, they don't vote for us anyway.
I think there's a bit of that.
Yeah. So we can afford to annoy them.
Yeah.
And,
but on the very day, Eamonn, they give a 22% pay rise over 2 years for junior doctors, some of whom are on £96,000 a year. You're saying to pensioners who may only on £200 a week, you've lost your.
But you know what? You're going to hear about. They all use this term, wealthy pensioners.
That's right.
People who are well off. I've yet to meet a wealthy pensioner.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, maybe the King.
Yeah.
Maybe Tony Blair, but there's not many of them. And 10 million pensioners are going to lose this money. Yeah. And you're telling me 10 million of them
and you know,
wealthy?
And they talk about their own credit or whatever. The amount of pensioners who would not take anything from the state.
That's right. They'd rather not have anything on.
There's at least 800,000 who are entitled to this pensioner credit who haven't claimed it and won't.
And wouldn't.
Because they're proud.
So we're going to be basically looking for keeping an eye on the missed girl situation. We're going to be looking at the developing story, obviously, with the knife attack in Southport. We've got reporters up there talking to some of the locals. What's going to be the condition of those children who are still in?
And what a beautiful day it is today, and it's just such sadness.
And you know, I was thinking, Andy Murray's playing in the Olympics today. Of course, he was a little boy in Dunblane when that man Thomas Hamilton went on the rampage, and he hid under a desk in his school, and he was one of the lucky ones.
Guys, thank you all from 9:30.
Thank you too.
I'm going to go before I go through the floor. We disappear here completely today. But
we'll be back tomorrow, won't we?
We will be back tomorrow. That's true. We'll do that from 6 a.m. So whatever you're doing in this beautiful sunshine, bask in it, enjoy yourselves. Andrew and Bev up next.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It's going to be another very hot day, likely hotter today than yesterday. Dry and sunny for most of us, and it will stay warm and humid overnight as well. There's still a weak weather front across northwestern areas, bringing some hazier sunshine to parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, into parts of Wales through this morning. That will sink southwards slowly through the day into central areas of England, bringing the hazier sunshine here. But elsewhere, long-lived, strong sunshine, and it will feel very warm indeed. As I said, hotter today than yesterday. 32 degrees is possible in the south and east. Could be the hottest day of the year so far. Widely, though, we're in the mid to high 20s across England and Wales. And it is going to be a hotter day for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland too. Across the far north of Scotland, though, the Northern Isles, we've got a bit of a brisker breeze, a risk of the odd shower here. Dry, though, elsewhere across Scotland. Temperatures still in the 20s this evening. To Northern Ireland as well, a bit more cloud around, particularly across southeastern areas. That hazier sunshine into central areas of England and Wales. But across the south coast, temperatures still in the high 20s this evening. If you are heading to the beach, sea temperatures are around 18 degrees across the south coast at the moment. Now, as we head into Wednesday, it should stay dry overnight. We've still got high pressure dominating our weather. There will be a bit of mist and fog developing here and there. And across the north of Scotland, it will still stay fairly fresh overnight. Temperatures still dipping down into the single figures. A different story further south, temperatures in the mid to high teens, and the humidity starting to increase overnight tonight. And that's because we've got this threat of thunderstorms coming ever closer from the near continent. That may affect the Olympics through Wednesday and into Thursday. More likely we'll see that thunderstorm risk in the UK through Thursday, but there is a risk through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening. Away from that thunderstorm risk, though, temperatures still in the mid-20s and the high 30s are still possible. Have a great day.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction 9 at Bannockburn's closed for emergency repairs. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, there are clockwise delays towards junction 1 at Stockport after an accident earlier. There are some cancelled Merseyrail train services into and out of Liverpool Central through Kirkdale, thanks to a faulty train earlier. In London, on the North Circular, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed eastbound just after the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow after an accident. There are queues from Edmonton. Also in London, the A23 is blocked northbound by an accident on Purley Way between Purley and Croydon, causing queues. On the M25 in Surrey, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed anti-clockwise at junction 13 at Staines after an accident, with queues from junction 17 at Maple Cross. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.